Evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all of you to the city council work session of Tuesday, October 28th. This is a joint meeting with the Parks Committee. Logistically, we didn't all fit here. We all showered, but we still haven't fit. So our Parks Committee is sitting out here in the front row. They could give a perks welcome. Thank you for coming. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the agenda.
So I move to approve the agenda as presented. Before we proceed, I would like to remind everyone to please be mindful of time during comments and discussion so we can move through this agenda efficiently.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So before we take our first set of public comment, I would like to have a moment of silence for a community member who passed away, Tim Keller. So if everyone could join me in a moment of silence, please. Thank you. Okay, so I want to set some guidelines for this evening. We're going to start out with public comment. And then we're going to have we're going to have staff report. We're going to have 3 presentations. And after each presentation, we will also take public comment. We're going to stick to a very strict 3-minute limit. There will be a timer on the screen. And I don't care where you are in your sentence. At the end of 3 minutes, you're done. Okay, so be watching it. I hope that it helps having it on the screen so that we can be mindful. But we want to hear everyone's opinion, but we want it to be concise and always kind and respectful, please. Okay, so we're going to start off with public comments. Is there anyone that would like to make public comment before presentations? Okay. And remember name, address.
Fred Julep, Post Office Box 1073, Cannon Beach, Oregon. For the record, in the November election of last year, my wife and I were both yes votes on the Coos project, wanting to move ahead. The reason behind this was the amount of work that had gone into it, and where we were at. And we both felt we're going to spend more and get less. So depending who you talk to, where we're at in this process, either we're at square one, start over, or we're just tweaking an existing plan. My personal view, I know where I stand on that continuum. That's kind of a matter of opinion. The main thing that I would like to put out and like to request is to have an open house of the gymnasium and the buildings. I understand this happened once 5 years ago. That's before I moved here. I've since had people come present me with a petition, want my name and signature to save that gymnasium. I'm not signing or voting to save any buildings I've never set foot in. I've heard a lot of opinions on the gymnasium. I heard about this great mezzanine, and I've heard just don't walk up there because we can't ensure your safety. So I would like to have an open house so that's well publicized, so the community can see what these buildings really look like on the inside and have not going to make an informed decision. The final point that I'd like to make is my number one priority is honoring the tribes as what was originally planned. And the initiative was voted down. Personally, I put that ahead of indoor pickleball courts or dance halls. So I'd like to honor the heritage of the tribes and maybe bring in something with Lewis and Clark in the next edition. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next. Hi.
First of all, I want to give kudos and congratulations to Gary and Eric and Hannah for doing a very nice job of their presentation. Very interesting work. I'm in favor of restoring the gym in a much reduced fashion. I think can be done in a way that can be used for a myriad of uses, not just pickleball, which I'm self-serving. I like to play pickleball in the indoor area as well. And I have to say that, an open structure will not serve the purpose of pickleball or extensive, recreation during the winter time when the storms come in at, 30, 40 miles an hour. I'd like to, mention the historical and environmental comments or, benefits. Historically, many people have a very, heartfelt attachment to the building. I think that it does have a lot of, beauty that can be, appreciated if it was being restored. The environmental benefits, I think, are also very strong. From my calculations, on the web, it appears that 100 tons or 120 tons of carbon is sequestered in that building. It's like 4 times the average carbon that's stored in an American house. And that on top of the fact that if you spend $450,000 on demolition of that gym building, all of that is going to end up in a dump somewhere. So it really has some very negative, demolition has some very negative environmental effects. And in terms of cost, I will defer to Todd Lawson, the architect, who's done some very good work on what the costs are. And I think the important thing that he's going to stress is comparing apples to apples. What's the cost of a sprung or open structure versus the restoration of the building. And I know that there's concerns about having to staff the thing. But I think I'd like to segue into Todd's presentation, if that's all right.
Okay, Todd.
Awesome. That's a Halem Drive. First of all, I wanted to start with a bit of an apology. The original plan that Mike and I and some other folks that are pro gym had was I would kind of stay in the background and research and help them figure out, is the gym solvable or not? And then a little miscommunication on Mike and I, he outed me at the counselor meeting, like, who's the spreadsheet I lost? Oh, so here I am. But, so apologies if anyone feels slighted or, because the tribe in general is not trying to take, sides with anyone. So if my name comes up tonight in regards to saving the gym, it's Todd. We can ask the tribe, I can go back and ask the tribe for an opinion about saving the gym. And we have lots of opinions, but we both, the tribe and myself, we're gonna go along with whatever we decide. We know it's a tough decision. But as part of that process, I told Mike, I said, Mike, I can't go forward until I see, it's ecologically correct, check. It's historically correct, check, obviously. Is it good for the tribe? Well, that's interesting, philosophy, carbon, all that, but is it financially doable? And I strongly say we need to take another look at those numbers, hard costs versus utilities versus, and really parse those down. And I think the gym could be competitive with anything I've seen. There's like a $2.5 million one in a presentation. So I wouldn't be standing here saying anything if it wasn't going to try. It's an important ecologically thing, fits with the thing. And what we're going to get to replace it is we'll never match the structure that we have right now. So again, the numbers are complex, and I'd be happy to talk with anyone about them afterwards over a beer or discuss it, or I can share my work. But I think before we throw the gym out with the bathwater, we need to really understand those numbers. And it's hard to do because the 3 or 4 different bids were all done differently, right? They don't have the same thing. I'm an architect, 30 years experience, I've sort of parsed it down, so I think it does make sense. I appreciate, by the way, all of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for co-hosting this meeting. I really appreciate it. I'm Martha Lawledge, PO Box 1282, Cannon Beach. And I have followed this project very closely and attended many of the development meetings and the various iterations of the design. And I just want to say that I have supported the original proposal of this project from the beginning. And I would concur that honoring the tribes for me is the highest priority. But I've lived here for many decades. And what I think about now with this project is all the things that we've lost in quality of life. The grade school closed, and that was a very long process for it. Fortunately, we have the charter school. We've lost the free shuttle in the community. So that ability to just move around this community, hop on the shuttle, especially with what our summers are looking like. We lost the summer parks program. I was involved in creating that for the kids here at the summer parks. And we had the Cannon Beach Children's Center. We lost the Cannon Beach Children's Center, which my kids attended. And then the communities, parts of the community that were in the taxing district got voted out of that. People didn't want to pay the property taxes. And so I'm someone who has spent well over $1,000 a year, close to $2,000, accessing indoor recreation in Seaside or Nehalem. Oftentimes in Nehalem, very small community, but just built a fabulous new pool, right? The community supported that. So I go there and I pay out of district fees, which are a little bit less than Seaside. And I use their indoor gym because they have incredible recreation opportunities down there and resources. I don't bicycle in this community like I used to. I used to ride in tandem with my son. People maybe remember that. It would be too unsafe to do that now. And the parking was out of control in the bike lanes all last summer. So I rode my bike twice all summer. I was also on the board of the Oregon School for the Blind, which was around for about 150 years. And the legislature closed it. And it was a very involved process to figure out what to do with that property. And it ended up being this extraordinary design of an adaptive playground with all the oral history around it that's also recorded. So you can go there and push buttons in your testimony. And it's so powerful. And I visit it every time I go to Salem because my son went to that school. And I think about that at the Cannon Beach Elementary School project. I want to have access to indoor recreation in this community. I love living here. I live here because of the natural beauty. But just last week, I went to a church that could provide indoor recreation and a place to play pickleball or whatever it is that you want to do.
Nadia. Thanks for your patience.
Nadia Gardner, PO Box 650, Tolovana. I have a letter in your packet, so thanks for taking a look at that. I'm here in two copies. One is not a letter, which is that I'm a Spanish speaker and I work with the Spanish speaking population here. I teach English as a second language at the Cannon Beach Library every Thursday from 6 to 7:30. Bring them down. And so I have a real deep connection with some of the families that live here. And then I myself am a mother of a 9-year-old. And if any of you have ever been parents or have taken care of young children, you know how just very difficult it is. And how important it is that we have places to go. When Mateo was little, I had to get out of the house. He's gonna tear the place apart every morning from 10 to 12. And in November, December, and January, there's very few dry, warm places to take a little baby. In fact, our library is not even open in the morning. So I would have to drive to Seaside or to Nehalem every day to get into a dry place so that he could run around and get the kind of stimulation that he needed with other kids and families and not to tear my house apart. Now that he's older, in the evenings it becomes more challenging. How do we keep them off their devices? We gotta get them out of the house for that. And so, for the sake of our Spanish-speaking families and our families with young children, I'm asking that you consider really carefully keeping that drive in one place for us. You know, now, of course, now today is the perfect day to be talking about this because you know as much as I do that, being on a tennis court, or even on the little stage out there is not adequate. Having a covered roof, even if it's on 3 sides, it's freezing. And there's horizontal rain. And so if you could in any way, find it in your hearts to preserve something that we already have, this incredible resource for our families, Spanish speaking and English speaking alike, it'd be really great.
Thank you. Yes, Kim?
Ready, PO Box 429. I was pretty thrilled to see the packet, with Councilor Hayes and Councilor Ostrander's presentations, which are, I think, both extremely interesting. You know, I'm gonna try to stay impartial as to what you do, but I'd love to see you just do something. It's been a really long process. And it'd be nice to get the community some stuff. One of the things that I've been harping on a little bit is we didn't know how much money the city really had in terms of discretionary spending. And now you do. You know, there's about $17 million that is above and beyond the normal reserves that you need. So I would love it if you would think hard about your options and not make dollars the paramount consideration, because we're only gonna get to do this once. And it'd be really nice if we get it right and if we answer the concerns of the citizens. I supported the Cedar project. I thought that would have been great. I don't think that project can come back, unfortunately. And that would have, you know, kind of addressed some of the concerns about the historic nature of the buildings. But if I look at both Councilor Hayes and Councilor Ostrander's plans, it makes so much sense. Take that classroom down, turn that into parking. The flow is much better. I do sort of prefer Councilor Hayes's positioning of the building because, again, that gives the entrance to the city a more beautiful look. And I'd love to have the entrance, it's the first thing you see. I'd love that to be beautiful. So thank you for considering this carefully. Don't let dollars and cents be the determination, because we're only going to get to do this once.
Thank you. Next. Anyone? Is there anyone on that? Oh, yeah.
I'm reading a statement for Don Stasny and he's an architect of town. And I'm gonna be really fast because I got scorpions here. So in his words, he apologizes for not being here tonight. I think he has given me permission to his statement. His wife and him have owned property in Cannon Beach since 1975 and built their house in 2000. So he had an international architecture and urban design planning practice in Portland and is currently active on a number of boards dealing with ongoing development of Portland that requires maintaining a base in Portland. The history of the firm includes work on embassies, cultural centers, museums, work with Native American, Alaska Native and Hawaiian Native tribal groups, while being honored to work with Native groups. He has worked with 15 to 20 Native groups in numerous communities in cities throughout North America. He has followed the evolution of the Micouse project from the beginning, and since they live in North End, he's very familiar with the site and has followed the development proposals offered for the site. Given that project is now in the state of reevaluation, he offers the following observations. The site is very prominent and should be considered as a setting the tone of what Cannon Beach is, as the gateway and anchor on the north end of downtown. Any building or site development should acknowledge the historical significance of the site as well as city builder and placemaker. Any development should honor both the original inhabitants as well as exemplify the unique characteristics of the place and the people of Cannon Beach. The site buildings should constitute telling the story of Cannon Beach, the use of the site by the tribes, and provide space and cover for community activities. I toured the buildings and site when the idea of the new Coos complex was first proposed. In my opinion, all of the school buildings should be demolished and removed from the site. They are of questionable quality and definitely do not have long-term viability nor cost-effective restoration value. While there are some that believe the gymnasium should be saved, I question whether the cost of maintenance over time serves Cannon Beach well. To my understanding, the many meetings and input sessions were focused on finding issues that can fit within existing structures, as opposed to thinking about the site as a unique part of Cannon Beach and what we as citizens want to portray our city, small city. We have found in our work with communities and tribes that there are at a minimum two sets of costs. First, the capital cost of any structure or landscape. Second, the ongoing cost of maintenance and operations. And his experience has found a simple principle of capital cost needs a commitment of equal funds for the first 10 to 15 years of the operation. In other words, if the total project is 8 to 10 million, then there has to be plans to provide equal amount of 8 to 10 million over the next 10 to 15 years. This should be especially true for buildings and sites on the Oregon coast that are subject to extreme weather of coastal and the environment, coastal environment. I will also Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, you have a copy.
And we do, it's in our pack. So if you would like to read the rest of it.
If anybody wants to read it, I can always email.
Well, it's in the. Right,
Not online, so just even today, but it is in the record.
okay,
And I have to share with anyone.
okay, thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, is there anyone on Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay,
David Stowe.
good evening, David.
You hear us, David? If you're talking, David, we can't hear you. Yeah, we'll have to come back to David and try again more.
Okay. So David, are you unmuted?
He called once, so I saw it, so he was trying to do it.
Okay, who's the other?
Let's see here.
What was Emma?
Big Dash is, on too.
Okay. Good evening, Dick.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see you. I don't know if you can see me or not. I don't see the camera click on my computer, but anyway.
Yeah, Dick, you have 3 minutes. I know that'll be challenging for you. So good luck.
Thank you. As you know, I have been part of the Cannon Beach, being raised in the stream and the creek, on the playground, and I am just wanting to say on behalf of myself and my family that we are happy to see some of the ideas that are being presented. But one of the two things that I want to make sure to be a part of and to throw out there for consideration is that the spot has always been a gathering place. It has been longhouses that have brought community together, that has provided a place for children to be raised, by family members and to have a safe place. And throughout the generations, throughout the centuries, that has evolved into that spot being a school. That has been a safe place for children. And I feel that it strongly that keeping the gym is important for a community atmosphere to provide a place for children and their families to do activities, to have larger community activities where all ages can coexist, to do various activities. I think over the years, it's gotten to be a joke that it would be pickleball. You know, it's been a real easy comment to throw out there that has brought a chuckle to many. But I think that has damaged the what can really be there. And so that's one thing. The second thing is I would like to throw out there that I want to be part of determining the future archaeological disturbances and to be working with the tribe and the city and the state and the federal government to make sure the disturbances to the soil are according to proper procedures and spiritual. I see I'm down to the wire. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're gonna try David again.
That's second here. See, really there's David. And then I have one more after that.
Okay.
David, can you hear us?
So who's our other?
Shannon Klein,
Okay. Sharon.
let me share.
Sharon Clyde, Post Office Box 973. I'd like to go on the record in favor of a plan that will, one, include the gym for music and all kinds of recreational activities, and two, incorporates the classrooms as learning spaces for both fixed displays and scheduled classes for educating locals and visitors about the history of the property, the tribes that were here first, our fragile environment of the ocean, forest, and the animals we live among. And three, I think that having the interpretive trail / garden is extremely valuable for educating people of the history of the floral and fauna found in our little piece of paradise. I think this would be a perfect opportunity to coordinate with the History Center to encourage people to visit each venue for more information on the settling of this area. We know more and more people are focusing on environmental issues. And in my opinion, I expect any information on our environment and our efforts to improve issues here will be very interesting to people. This is not a frivolous project. Patch and paint is below Cannon Beach's standards. In my opinion, do it right or don't do it. We have a way to have a beautiful informational park at no cost to our residents. Why in the world would anyone not want it? Cannon Beach is in a class of its own on the North Oregon coast, and we should want nothing less. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay, can I try David again?
Try one more time, sure. Are you there, David? I'm guessing his microphone is, hooked up or something wrong with microphone.
So David, if you can hear us, we can't hear you. There will be other opportunities for public comment, so maybe you can get your situation figured out and we'll hear from you later. Okay, anybody else in the audience or on Zoom? Okay, and just a reminder, you will have more opportunities for public comment. So next on the agenda, we have, the staff report. Bruce?
Madam Mayor, I would suggest that we go on to the council discussion. Really the only thing to present is the dollars that have already been discussed by Todd. So unless you want to go through each of these items, but I think you're on a good roll.
Okay. He doesn't think he needs to go with the staff report.
Well, I did have questions about, the Bremick estimate. And just exactly what that included and what the difference between the Bremick estimate and Todd's estimate.
The Bremick estimate was all inclusive, includes site work, includes for example, each of the buildings is needs electrical, plumbing, everything has to be replaced, heat. It is all has to be rebuilt. There's parts of the gym, specifically the mezzanine, that does not meet code and would need to be removed. And there are functions there that would need to be replaced, including the restrooms that are underneath. So it's more of a, what would the total dollars be, if we were just doing these projects separate? And that's the number that they gave us, and it was enough to go ahead and include everything.
And when you say site work, what does that include?
If there's, well, anything that would be associated with the site, which would include sidewalks, walkways, plantings, anything like that.
Okay, it doesn't include a parking lot. Because there was no parking lot. for the
This
place.
is not,
Doesn't include, it includes restrooms inside of the facilities, but not restrooms, exterior restrooms that could be accessible for people who are just visiting the park or along estuary.
the buildings as designed did have an exterior access to the restrooms. So we would have had, since the outdoor restaurant, not an outdoor restroom, but restrooms accessible from the outdoors in that location for the first time.
Really, I don't recall that, but
Yeah, it's indoor, outdoor restroom essentially.
all right, thanks.
Does the site work include the work, the upgrades necessary for the food pantry? The electrical and plumbing is,
Food pantry would be separate, is considered a separate project.
okay, so it's, even though it's on the same site, that's not included in the dollars that are here in the site work.
I'm sure there's a lot of things, like if we're gonna be upgrading the power, we would be doing a separate that line for the food pantry. They would benefit from whatever expense that was.
Okay.
Does anybody on the Parks Committee have any questions for Bruce from the staff report? All right, okay. Anybody else? Okay, so we will go ahead and move to our presentations, and our first presentation is by Councilor Hayes. Take it away.
Okay. Well. I mean, before I start, I'll just say, I've been surprised how close Eric and I, are in our plans, and, neither of us are park designers. But when it comes down to kind of some of the basic, wants, it seems like our list was very similar. Rusty's working on my report, but, I developed this plan, based on my participation in the initial, public process. As a counselor, listening to all of the concerns and all of the desires of all of the citizens. And then as chair of the NICUS Advisory Committee, again, listening to people and what they wanted and really hearing both sides. And, you know, it's challenging because so many people want so many different things. But I've been in communication with the Classic Nahalo Tribal Council. Been in communication with Doug Dewar, who did the white paper for this site for Portland State University and National Park Service. And Doug has done a lot of the work when we start talking about interpretive trail and planning or restoration of the site. It's not like someone else has to come in and do that because Doug has written the paper on it. I walked the site with Don Stasny, you heard earlier, who you know, has probably done more architectural work for Native tribes in this area than anybody. Looked at the food pantry needs and whether they wanted to stay there, how we could access, how people could access the site a little bit better than they do now, coming off of Spruce Street, essentially making a circle inside of the park grounds. And also looking at the farmer's market and what the needs would be for that site to host the farmer's market and get it out of Midtown. So I wanted to remove all of the hurdles that the previous project faced was one of the big things. And the first one is cost and borrowing. So the voters turned down saving the gymnasium and saving the classroom. And if we want to turn around, you know, we're probably looking at a $15 million project at this point. So you'll see my project uses available funds and does not borrow. There's a lot of talk about no parking on the site. So added parking is part of the plan. There's a lot of talk about it being a tourist facility. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that the funding for this project is coming from restricted tourism dollars. They can only be spent on projects that have the substantial purpose of accommodating tourist activities. So, you know, the previous project balanced that out. We were able to have a substantial purpose with the interpretive center and all of that, and get the community recreation. But just funding community recreation would not qualify for this funding. There were a lot of talk about out-of-town consultants, and I really see this project as being something that we can accomplish with a lot of local work, whether it's Parks Committee volunteers doing the planting, working with the local businesses. I do think we need a real parks designer to take a look at it, because I don't think, you know, what any of us have done really qualifies as, park design, although we've both taken a stab at kind of looking at some of that, but I think as far as the interpretive trail and things like that, we don't need someone to come in and tell us what to do. We've got the History Center, we've got all of Doug's work, so a lot of it, is done. Don't be skipping along too far there. I actually wanna start with it.
Okay.
And then people complain about lacking village character. Essentially because of the size of the buildings. And I think partly because they practically sit on the street. There's some talk about not wanting to duplicate existing resources, so those are all things that I wanted to address in this. So, my presentation, is Necruz Park. An outdoor space that engages the community. Place to gather, a place to learn, a place to reflect, a place to observe, a place to celebrate. And now you can move along. So I wrote a quick vision statement that Goose Park will provide engaging new opportunities for the public to enjoy outdoor experiences and gather as a community. Added trees and native planting will enhance the vibrant creekside setting to showcase our remarkable coastal ecosystems. Park improvements will honor the historical site of the native residents in Necruz and their culture. Park amenities will include a legacy of learning on the site, providing space for active educational and interpretive opportunities that celebrate our history, the arts, and promote environmental awareness toward greater stewardship. Those are the things that I thought were the key elements here. So I think the biggest thing here is restored natural environment. I mean, if you want to talk about common denominator, what something that everyone could enjoy. And again, this plan has been created by Doug Dewar, not like a landscaping plan, but he's got a list of the plants, he's got the interpretive information on the plants. But returning that site to more what it was historically is what his plan is about. Now, I think we do keep the multi-use lawn in the center, but essentially we have the opportunity to plant more trees than we've ever planted in this town. All along First Street as people are coming into town, which suddenly create a buffer as people come off the highway and out of the trees, they wind down and cross the creek and more trees. You know, I just feel like we have an opportunity that we also don't want to pass up. So really improving that entrance. You know, just providing a place of public respite, really a place that people can walk. You know, there's a lot of complaints about our outside consultants and fencing off the elk. And we all push back on that, and essentially, it's gonna be wildlife habitat. We're going to live with elk. So not only offering a space where they can graze and be observed, but hopefully we can teach people how not to be idiots around the elk as well.
Good luck with that.
I know, I saw it today from my house. Anyway, I think a rare opportunity to create a space that really will inspire future generations. And you know, again, be looking at community participation through this whole thing. Go ahead, Rusty. I do think celebrating the historical site and the culture of the native people is critical. And Eric and I both have, I don't speak for you, but we both have that interpretive trail Sharon mentioned. So you will be able to walk an interpretive trail around the perimeter of the site and not only learn that was a historic village site and about the native people and about salmon and canoe, their canoe culture, you know, what they ate, what their houses looked like. And understand that they were a culture of village nations. It wasn't like they were big tribes, they were all autonomous. And I feel like we've got such a great opportunity to tell the story of one village nation. Lewis and Clark is part of the story. There's this much of the story in the time frame that the native people lived there. But that was our first documentation of the native village, was when William Clark came to Cannon Beach in 1806 and drew a map of the creek and the Indian village across the creek and camped on the north side of the creek. So that's a part of the story too. And I think as far as culture and history, the site being the site of Cannon Beach Elementary is also important. And that whatever we do, I hope we honor the site as a place to learn. And so, I hope tonight we can get down to the point where we're really looking at what are the key things we want to create in the park and move from there. Interpretive trail to me, again, it's not only about the native culture either, it's about the environment. And those go hand in hand so much. But, we want to teach people about our environment and make them better stewards of our environment. So the interpretive trail would do that. In that 1/4 mile loop, you could learn so much, not only about the native people, about our environment, the watershed, wetlands, the birds. It's a long list of what people could learn in that 1/4 mile loop. I've got weather protected spaces, and I've put a few specific examples in here, but again, I just think, people are talking about places we need weather protected spaces. When I think weather protected picnic areas, right now, the park is used by people with their dogs and throwing the ball for the dogs. And when it's raining, they're out there under the awnings that are existing, throwing the ball for the dogs, or under the trees. And so these weather protected spaces would provide that kind of thing. And one thing Cannon Beach does not have in any of our parks is a group shelter. Something where a group could actually gather. So a group picnic shelter is something that is one of the things that I think would be useful here. And I do believe that if it was designed right by a professional, that it could be protected from the weather so that it could serve as an outdoor classroom. We've got people, some on the Parks Committee, who are chomping at the bit to put together outdoor education and teaching about the environment. And I think it's a perfect spot. Added parking. People say we have a parking problem here, as in there's not enough of it. This would add parking. And my plan adds enough parking that we could host the farmer's market there. So I asked Tracy, our farmer's market coordinator, exactly what kind of space we need. And so the rough plan that I drew up brings it there, gets it out of Midtown. Other things like the Earth Day Street Fair, things like that could actually take place in that parking area. Parking area also provides a logical access to the food pantry. Coming off of Beaver Street, making the loop around the parking lot, doing their pickup at the food pantry, and being able to exit. Restrooms. I live in the North End, and I walk a lot in the North End. And I walk the nature trail, and I walk through the schoolyard, and I walk through the little grove of trees there to the west. And after one of our busy weekends, when you go out there, and regretfully you did, because there's, 400 families out there. Our current restroom is that grove of trees. And it's really an unsanitary thing, and we need restrooms in that site. Public art is my last thing on here. I feel like this gives us a real opportunity as you come into town to set the stage for Palm Beach being a place of art. So as you first see all the restored trees and native plantings, and then as you're really kind of coming into where the buildings are, a piece of art there at that southeast corner makes a lot of sense, I think. All right, what else do I have on this thing, Rusty? Possibilities, I think I've talked a lot about them, but I'll emphasize community involvement a lot. Also, involvement from the tribes all the way through. So any kind of structure on there would have tribal input. Certainly the interpretive stuff would have tribal input, though a lot of that is already done. But working with the History Center, I've envisioned things like being able to hear the native people be able to tell some of their stories, their oral history stories, that could be hosted on the History Center website, and could all be part of the interpretive trail. Talked about the weather protected spaces. One of my other thoughts was this nature trail, interpretive trail, heritage trail, whatever you want to call it, along the creek would be a perfect spot for a little wetlands overlook deck. Would not only be an opportunity to teach people about wetlands, would also look out where Lewis Park camped. So there's so much history there. I saved what the architect called I think they called it the Thunderbird Plaza, in the southeast corner of the site, right there at Fur and Beaver, just because that seems like a great place for public art. And I like the way that it told the story about the native people's origins and how Thunderbird was part of creating the different tribes throughout this region. A quiet space plaza, just, as we've got lots of more enclosed spaces with trees, the place, just a small little nook where you can go and sit and reflect. And these are just some ideas and some possibilities, I think, but Rusty, I did an inspiration board, so you can see up there, I've got something on the trail where one side of it becomes all restored landscape, transitions then to the trail and an open use multi-space. I've got some examples of interpretive information, some Native American interpretive information, and some nature interpretive things that are easy as locking up with your phone and scanning the QR code, and it could read you. Someone could read you that a native legend, or tell you about whatever the environmental topic is there. There's something that is meant to represent the quiet space area. And then I threw in a couple of buildings. I didn't really want anybody to take this too literally, or the artwork or anything, but the idea behind a space that's partly open and partly closed is the concept. And this could be one structure that includes the restrooms that we build and then that covered shelter area. I did a lot of visiting of a lot of the interpretive, Native American interpretive places throughout the Northwest this last year. And I have one more. This is a quote from Doug Dewar in his 2019 white paper on Nacruz. It's not something that's available to the public because it's archaeologically sensitive. But he did share it with me, and I'm sure, you know, privately, if you want to take a look, but you know, his quote: "With concerted effort, community partners can ensure that the rich history of the site continues to inspire and educate the public. They can ensure that Nacruz Village will remain a meeting place for diverse people and for socializing and sharing ideas, and that its history will not be forgotten." That to me was really hit the nail on the head in a lot of different ways. And then I think I did throw kind of a rough schematic of what I'm looking at. I hesitate to show it when I was told, oh, now I see what you're talking about. And if you see at the very first street is on the right, Beaver Street is at the bottom. And if you see where the parking is indicated, you can do a loop around the parking lot, pick up at the food pantry, and then exit in a logical way. And everywhere that there's green is all restored landscape. So I don't know how many trees we could plant, but certainly more than we planted anywhere in this town for a long time, I believe. Multi-use open space in the middle. I mean, notice how there's so much more green now added as you come into town. It's just, it will be thick. You will essentially walk through a natural landscape. Wetlands deck towards the top. And I've got a shelter on the west side of it, and the restrooms on the west side that would accommodate the estuary. But again, I'm not a park designer. I don't want to, you know, say this is it. But I think what we need to do is agree on some basic principles and put it in the hands of a designer, and then let's all talk about it again. I think I put a budget in. I looked at what we've got right now in the current Canyon Beach Elementary Bond Fund, about 3.4 million. Over the next year, that will grow by $120,000 over the debt service that it pays for on that bond. We've got about 1.2 million of the 1.5 restricted TLT. Again, these are things that can only be spent on a substantial tourist activity. And that 1.5% TLT will grow by $836,000 over the next year. Our Tourism and Arts Fund that funds a lot of events. We're starting to use that for more things like this, community improvement projects, especially that involve art. And so as their money comes in, they've only been able to give away half of it, and they've had extensive reserves. And I think they could easily, over the next year, add $1 million to that project. So $6.6 million, we wouldn't have to borrow a thing, and I believe it would give us a world-class park.
Okay, before we take public comment, are there questions for Gary from either the Parks Committee or City Council? Any?
I have a question, and not that, on the TLT, you stated growth there.
Those numbers came from Tim. I had asked him to estimate the growth.
Right, that just depends on the economy.
Right.
Right. I'm just throwing it out there so I know I did.
My guess is they will actually come in higher than this if it were anything like history.
So if we spent all of this, which we don't know, that's just funds that are available, not a budget for what you have put together.
Correct.
So to be clear on that.
Well, we talked about, especially you've talked about, let's decide on how much we're gonna spend and see what we can get for it, and that's kind of.
Right, well,
And not just say, let's dream up the world, and then it ends up being.
right,
12.4 million, and we give everybody something.
right, and you're right, I have stated that in the past, that we need to kind of have some sort of budget, but we can't forget that we've already spent $2.3 million on that project. So that's a fair statement to throw out there, just, so if we spent all of that money and we added that 2.3 million to it, then you're looking at a $9 million project and approximately $1 million for the food pantry, in addition to that. With that.
Which is general fund, but
Right, which is different funds, but I'm just putting that out there, so we're all kind of on it.
and. To be fair. All of these funds were funds that were. Directed at this project from the beginning.
Oh, I'm not, I just wanted to clear some things. Me, that we all agreed that I'm not making stuff up in my own mind.
And there is. There's more TLT money, that we're, we look at for other projects as well. And, I heard a comment earlier about, we've got $17 million. That's kind of lumping together a lot of the city's different funds. And we've got a lot of needs for those funds, so I'm afraid when people start thinking, oh, there's $17 million, let's just go to town. We've got things like the water resiliency project. We've got things like the First Street Bridge retrofit. We've got some serious community needs, so I hesitate for people to think too much that we've just got, never-ending funds there. But I would agree with the comment that we should do this right.
Yeah, I agree with that, and on your proposal, which I like, by the way. There are a couple of things, like the wetlands overlook. I think that's a spectacular idea, but it is something that if we came into a position, we could wait to do that a little bit later. So there's some projects that could be done different. Done in a few little stages with, so we don't have quite as much economic impact.
I think phasing in is possible. I mean, that group shelter, if that's an idea that we all like, it would just, first of all, naturally take a while. So there may be a natural phase into the whole thing, so, it's not like we might need to spend all of that budget at once. And maybe we don't even need to spend that much, I don't know.
Right, we don't know, yeah. Thank you, Counselor Hayes.
Thanks for the questions.
Anybody else? On the topic about Parks Committee? Okay, is there anyone in the audience?
I have one comment that's not super important.
Don't.
No, it was not wetlands overlay, I just wanted to comment, I have for years wanted us to have a boardwalk that goes out 40-50 feet into the Little Pompeii wetlands. From where the river ends there, I think that would be the supreme location for an overlook.
I've always thought about, using TOT funds for that as well. I don't know if you're talking about Spruce Street, but I've
Oh,
always.
no, from the backside, from the church.
Okay.
What I've always been.
But I've thought the same thing. I mean, being able to do some of that wetlands education there. The other thing about the whole interpretive trail is it just connects to our nature trail. I mean, again, I walk a lot, but I walk up the nature trail, along the creek, up through Pompeii wetlands, beyond the ponds. I walk through spruce forest, then you could cross back over and kind of get a little bit of the history and quaint parts of town regardless. And,
Art Central.
and then cut over to the ocean and either walk back on the beach or on Ocean Avenue and you get creek, you get wetlands, you get forest, you get ocean in about a 2-mile walk. And it's such a gem.
Okay, we're gonna open it up to public comment if you have any questions about anything in Gary's proposal. Yeah, and the 3 minute, they should have gone down.
Yeah.
Let's make a rule right now.
Let's see, and Margot, their last 1282. I really appreciate your proposal and the thoughtfulness that is going into it and, that you state many places, a place for recreation, a place for recreation, a place for recreation. And outdoor recreation feeds my soul and it's a part of our identity. But recreation is also indoors and you refer to community and wow, the funding is coming primarily from one stream. Visitors who come to this community, in my experience, ask where they can go to do things. And this idea of having a multi-use indoor recreational facility, I think is absolutely critical for the physical health and the mental health and the longevity of this community and have a place to go. And I don't think that those of us who live here and will be living here in the future should have to go to all these other communities to be able to access indoor recreation. So that I'm just very attached to somehow figuring out how to continue to include that so that it's accessible to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, I'm Tina David, PO Box 1190. I'm wearing my president of the food pantry hat right now, not a community member. I was pleased to see both of the proposals include the food pantry remaining at the site where historically people have been fed. As you're looking at logistics, please feel free to reach out to me or any of our board members or any of us. So we can, give input on the site still being there. I don't think that we have a food pantry, but I'm not exactly sure how many people know how many people we service there, how many cars go through that area on a given Wednesday. 50 is our average, JP, but it's okay. We'll go up to 75 cars on a Wednesday from 3 to 5:15. You don't want that traffic anywhere else in this town. So Wednesday mornings from Madison Street to the pantry, it's 15 minutes for me to get there. So, as far as going forward on how much it costs and those kinds of things, I'd really like to be involved in those conversations. If that's at all possible. And, we just want to continue to be the place where our neighbors and the workforce can come and get the food they need to be able to survive, to live in this beautiful place that the rest of us get to enjoy with them. Thank you for your help.
Thank you. Thank you. Kim?
Tim Brady, PO Box 429. I really appreciate Councilor Hayes' plan. And well, very similar to Councilor Ostrander's, I would prefer the location of your building. It just seems it fits with the weather better and also gives you less of the building on the approach from the highway. One of the things I didn't mention earlier, and I probably should have, I think the whole issue of recreation and indoor recreation and winter indoor recreation is super important. And maybe as a part of this, we consider spending $1 million or $1.5 million and put a sprung structure over one of these tennis courts. That would give you pickleball or the ability to do a 200-person meeting if you needed to. those are real needs in this town. As far as the indoor space that, Councilor Hayes has drawn, I'm hoping that would accommodate 100 people and 125 would be better. I think we've had a couple of overflow, city council meetings. I think the capacity there might have been 74, something like that. Thinking about town hall meetings, which we don't do, but it would be really good if we could. We need a place for that. Maybe that's in the sprung structure right here. Think about that as a second option.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience? Is there anyone online?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've listened into these meetings for the last, I don't know how long, along with my father, Wade Kuykendall, who is now in hospice. The issue regarding this school has been contentious in this community for a very long time. One, it's in a flood zone. Two, it's in a tsunami zone. And I've listened to all the individuals who have spoken tonight, and all have great comments and all are relevant. What I've heard from the community is we need a community center. We need a place that we can gather. We need a place that we could have events. That is important for a community, and I agree with that. What I'm struggling with, and I think my father, if he was sitting here with me now, would be struggling with, is cost and location. There is a priority in this community too with regards to parking. There's a priority in this community too with regards to restrooms. There was that on the docket. I don't know what meeting that was for the city council, but that was also infrastructure needs. I mean, currently you had a blowout over on Gower Street. That's a huge issue. I think going forward, I would hope that the city council would take into account the priorities of what the infrastructure needs are of the city first. Second of all, I do agree, we need a place. We need a place. As a community, we need a place. But is this the place? That's all I'm asking. Is this the place? I understand that we want to renovate, but the cost. Would it not be better to think about a different place for a community center, for a place for people to gather without the cost of the renovation for a very, very old building in a flood zone and a tsunami zone? And so going forward, I would ask the council to think about those things and to consider them as we move forward in your planning. And I do appreciate the conversation. I do appreciate you listening to me tonight, and I thank you for your time.
For the record, could you please give your name and address?
I'm sorry. My name is Linda Rosman, P.O. Box 894.
Thank you. Anybody else online? Want to try David? Is he still with us?
I don't see. No way that.
Okay, one more time. Anyone in the audience? Parks? City council? Okay, Eric, it's your turn.
Parks is awful quiet over there.
I know.
We're saving it up.
For a rainy day. Okay.
So I imagine I'm not, I don't, talk a lot. So, hopefully my presentation will keep it rather short. Before diving into my slides that I've got, when I put this together, when I had put it together initially, when I'm going to present it to public comment to the Parks Committee a couple of months ago, and then didn't end up occurring, I was not thinking of what my proposal is, and I'm also not thinking Gary's proposal in the same way, of Hayes' presentation versus Ozark's presentation, or the CETA presentation versus, this is, what, the way I was looking at this is options to incorporate things that were asked for by the community. It's not necessarily everything, but it isn't everything, and that's comes down to price, essentially, is what it comes down to, price and what is actually gonna get used by the community. And so those are key factors that were in the forefront of my mind. What is reasonable? There's always a thought process when an engineer is designing something. An engineer can design something to withstand everything. You can build a building that could go all the way to space, but it comes down to cost. And so there's a cost needs to be cut somewhere, and in order to cut those costs, you cut features of it. And so that's kind of what my thought process was going into this whole presentation. We can go to the next slide. It's hard to see up on the screen. It's in the packet though. I've got, both myself and Hannah Busher, my wife, were the ones that kind of put this together with, some of the pictures that ones I took or found online, and then, the site map that I drew, I had, Jay Warlock from Logan Architects, so I asked him if he could draw it so it was more professional than my doodles that I had on a napkin essentially of, what was going on, but, my wife does have a bachelor's in natural resource management and master's in parks, recreation, and tourism management. And then she has almost a decade of years of experience in environmental education, specifically outdoor environmental education. So that's the lens that a lot of the interpretive stuff was thought about when we were putting this all of this together. Next slide. This we collated together the suggestions that were in the existing packets from all the public comments that had been leading up into this. I have some color coding on here that is different colors. The yellow highlighted sections, pickleball courts, multi-use sports and gym, farmers / art market, community dog park, outdoor concert venue. Those are all the ones that are yellow going across. Those are ones that were specifically included within the design. In our opinion of how this is being designed and put together. The green ones were ones that, borderline if they were included, depending on how you define some of those things. Some of these terms that were used were a little bit, grayish, within those, community surveys that were done previously by CETA and the previous architect. So it's grayish whether or not those things are included. The art classroom, the community garden, and the multi-use large event space being the key ones there. And then the ones that aren't highlighted were the ones that were, for one reason or another, not directly included within the proposal that we had here. So we can go to the next page there. Probably don't need to look. This is the existing site as it stands, based on the Clatsop County tax maps. Just a screenshot on the page showing the white building in the middle is the classroom building, the gray, everyone's familiar with the site, so we can. Okay, so what I've got, this is again hard to see on the screen from a distance, but it was in the packet, so you can see it. The highlighted portion there is to indicate the approximate location, and as Councilor Hayes noted, neither one of us are park designers. We have experience in things, but not necessarily park design. So this is essentially following a very similar path to the existing trail that we've got going around the trip, going around the multi-use grass area. But so not deviating that too terribly from where it's at. Going to the next slide. What I think is important with that is to, I have the first photo on the right is a photo of an existing panel, like one of the existing panels that are out around on our interpretive trail. It goes around the settling ponds and then comes around the trail over to the school itself now. And at the bottom is an example of some more creative, it's some of the interpretive stuff that we've seen when we've been around. That's actually an example from San Diego. There's an interpretive part in downtown San Diego that has some really cool interpretive things like that are included. And I believe working with local interpretive planners, something like Timberdoodle Studios, or even directly with our museum and the tribe to get the topics and the specifics of these things, as opposed to just saying, we want interpretive, and then sending it off to somebody to give us random interpretive stuff about things. It's to me very important to incorporate not only the natural, but the cultural and tribal history within this interpretive trail. So currently it's the interpretive panels, there's one out of all of them that includes cultural and tribal history out of all the panels that are currently existing that are around. So I think bumping up that, and not just for panels, but things like that bench with the artistic bench associated there in that photo. And then I believe we would need to be, for this particular thing, updating it for ADA compliance. So currently it's the bark dust thing, so it has to be a different medium for community ADA compliance for accessibility. Want to go to the next slide? So moving along to the green section of this. So this is something where Hayes and I's plan is very similar. A restoration of habitat through this whole area. So it'd be both. I didn't highlight the north side of the trails because the trail is basically against the riparian area as it exists now. But expanding that, essentially expanding that riparian zone to include a portion of the green space that's around there. These are all approximate lines that have been drawn on a map, but including both the natural history of the site, so the indigenous plants, the salal, the willows, all of the things that were here when the first people were here experiencing the land for themselves, versus having some trails that you can go through from the south side, similar to what Hayes had on his, where you've got a trail that goes from the south, from Beaver, kind of winds its way up to meet up with the interpretive trail. And that space provides, it's substantially wide. It's over 60 feet wide in that area from the edge of the gym to the edge of the road. So there's plenty of space for trees to essentially shield any structure that goes in on that site from view from First Street. So it's kind of helps things blend in, whether they're shorter trees, being pine maples or things like that only grow 15 to 20 feet. Or if you put larger things in there that are going to be a little bit offset from the road, that are going to completely block stuff up. So it's just completely hidden back in the forest. Next slide. This kind of just lines out what I had just verbally mentioned there. Within the Heritage Garden, I also had envisioned using, because my site does have a structure where the existing gym is at, and using the rainwater runoff from that to create the bioswale and rain garden that goes through that the Heritage Garden area of the site. So instead of shutting that off into stormwater drains for it to just kind of go through this artificial piping, having it actually utilized on site for the gardens themselves. This site will also provide an opportunity for the garden group to kind of leave their mark on how the design of this area could be. So this isn't something that we necessarily need to hire out a landscape architect to decide where the plantings need to go and how those work, but this is something that the community can come together and say, this is, to make this our own, we have our plants that we know the indigenous peoples, the first peoples of this land that we're using. And how do we get our community to work together with that and work that together? Next slide. This one was one that I saw a number of times. A number of people asked me about this. An area for off-leash dogs that was not the beach was a pretty heavy comment during the last discussions leading up to this, and then since the vote, there's been quite a few comments I've heard
about this. So with this area, it's not substantially sized, but again, not a park designer, just interested in parks. It's, I believe it's 100 by 40 or 100 by 50 or something, 100 by 30. So it's not substantial in size, but it's something that provides people that are uncomfortable with other dogs interacting with their dogs, a place to throw the ball that's gonna be sequestered to some extent from that. And then, like I said, you can go to the next slide. It's, by specifically creating that, it continues to promote Cannon Beach's dog destination status, so it just provides another essentially another dog amenity for Cannon Beach. And then, as I said, there was, quite a bit of comments that I received and saw within the record about, inclusion of the dog park. It's relatively inexpensive to do something like that, private space. Next slide. This is, I just highlighted the words, but that whole center area that wasn't the heritage garden and isn't the parking area below it is open green space that is approximately the same size as the area that they use for the soccer field on the site now, the orientation of the soccer field gets set up there. So it still provides that opportunity to continue, and we don't stymie that opportunity that happens every single Wednesday through the summer season. And it also just provides just a green space. I'm honestly not a big fan of just grass. Grass is a horrible crop. We should be planting native stuff everywhere and not have grass. I don't like grass, but grass serves a purpose. You play sports on it. It serves a purpose, and I think by leaving this area open, it allows these activities to still happen. Go to the next slide. The parking area. So this was one I measured and walked it and had Jay actually draw it up with a computer, because trying to do a hand drawing, doing 90 degrees was easiest, and doing the 50 degree e-foot was get more face in there. But I envision the south edge of this parking along Beaver having an enlarged, substantially more green space than what is required by city code. Just to make sure that we have a full buffer of those cars from Beaver Street, so you don't see them, and on the west side between the houses that are existing and the parking lot. And also providing space for those green spaces to be used as biosoils. So collecting the rainwater and not shunting it as much as possible off in the storm drains that disappear. So that's both on the south side, the west side, and in that center island area is larger than city code requires for the green space for a parking lot. And I really was hoping with that to have larger vegetation, the larger shrubs, the like pine maples. I love pine maples, but pine maples, things that grow and block the view, so you don't see what is typically considered just an ugly area. You can go to the next slide. So I found this online. I lost the photo that I took of one that was essentially the same picture, but there's lots of opportunities for essentially hiding cars within a parking area with vegetation. The McMillan's up in Kalama. I was just up there a couple of months ago, and their parking lot has medians within it similar to this, the vegetation is now mature and basically blocks off all of you. So you can't see from one house to the other, which is nice. It helps reduce the visual impact of just having cars on site. And additionally, the parking lot itself takes up less space to the north than the existing blacktop is where I had. So we're not digging into virgin soils, we're digging into sections that are already currently disturbed, less likely to have anything that would be disturbed if we started digging. And obviously we would be using the contract tribal representation to monitor the site during any sort of investigation. Very early. Next slide is one that I had trouble, so the food pantry was super important, I know the food pantry itself, I had some board members reach out, I had some people that, visit the food pantry reach out that they want this on site at this particular location. I see no reason why we need to move it personally to anywhere else, this seems like the most logical place for it to be, this seems like the place that can accommodate the types of traffic flow that goes through the food pantry. And so with that, I left it basically the same spot that it is existing currently. There's been discussion on council about that the building needs to be replaced and where we can use one of these two buildings that are being rented. And so that's the size of of that one, I believe is the size of the PD building. Is what was drawn in there, so moving it a little bit to get it away from the trees and turning it to the side so that you have a little bit better flow for traffic to get around it. And then I indicated on my presentation there, coming from the parking lot through a dedicated food pantry gate that would be closed except for on food pantry day, it could be open and traffic could flow through it. I indicated coming from the parking lot going back to Spruce, but to come out where they currently come in, but it could go the other way around. Either way, whichever honestly flows the traffic the best through that area is important, and I think it's there's a space on the site to maintain the food pantry there as it is, even with some slight modifications to it as we've got here. Next slide. I mentioned potential improved traffic flow. I don't know if it would be improved. I don't know why you used the word improved, but potentially similar traffic flow as to what is currently existing. And then the food pantry would be able to continue operating as normal, essentially. With I know there've been some concerns about potential private, like a little bit of privacy sort of things. This provides a very similar view. There's a very similar product for the site is what currently exists there, or with some new stuff. Next slide. This shows, kind of hard to see on that, but the squares with the lines that are piled on top of it are the existing gym and classroom buildings that would be removed and replaced with parking lot and the covered pavilion structure that I had put in here. It's kind of messy, so if you want to go to the next slide and line it a little bit hard to see, but you've got on the right hand side of that a structure. I was looking at a two-sided pavilion that is, in my mind, I was viewing this as a large barrel-shaped arch, similar to the Quonset hut that we have now, but not an enclosed structure. A big cost going forward with things is ongoing maintenance, ongoing management, and staffing of enclosed structures. And the ability to have them open more hours means more staffing. So that was a big concern of mine. That was also a big concern of many people that I talked to. So I wanted to leave it open, but with a newer structure being constructed with two sides, there is the possibility that it could be retrofitted in the future to be enclosed if that ends up being the use in terms of a phased approach, that you could close in those other two sides down the road if that's the direction that the community decides they want to be using the structure as opposed to the two-sided structure. The south side of the structure is completely enclosed all the way to the top, with a number of individual stall restrooms, is what I indicated here, but again, not a park designer or a restroom designer, maybe two restrooms. I like individuals because I feel like that's easier to close down and open up individually when there's issues with them. And then some storage as well. That storage would be able to provide space for the 24 or so tables and chairs for the farmers market, and this would provide space for the farmers market to be able to be under that undercover area when the weather is more or less inclement season, because that in the summer too, during the farmer's market season. And then the east wall, do you want to go to the next slide? The east wall, I couldn't find an artist rendition, but that top one, the east wall would be a solid wall that connects to the roof and provides, a little bit of a backdrop from weather. I know the weather generally comes from the west and from the south, but it provides a little bit of a backdrop for the blow through. And it'll also provide a space, for the inside and the outside for interpretive design and interpretive stuff. So things like, a large mural could go on the outside. We could, utilize that space for the Cottonwood tribe to tell a part of their story that is better told in a visual medium like that, as opposed to the rest of the other options that are being provided throughout the other styles of interpretation that's being provided through here. And then, I think that might basically be it. Like I said, I was shying away from an enclosed structure, just as the ongoing costs of maintenance and management of these structures. I just had concerns about, that this potentially has a little bit of a, staffing cost as, maintaining the grounds. But it's, grounds maintenance as opposed to having somebody physically on site to unlock and maintain operational usefulness of an enclosed building. So, yeah. That's what I got.
Okay. Councilor Parker, maybe you have any questions for Eric? Okay.
First of all, I just want to say that, you know, I really, appreciate these incredibly thoughtful presentations by both Councilor Oster and Councilor Hayes. There are so many features in both presentations that I think are incredibly wonderful. But I really want to be clear that both proposals foreclose a large community indoor recreation space. To pretend otherwise is really disingenuous. They're kind of winds and rain we have here in the winter. This is not an indoor class. And this is not, you know, it's a gathering place when it's not windy, but it's not an indoor recreation place. And I'm not saying one way or the other which one I'm leaning towards. I'm just saying, I think that we gotta be clear that they are two very different things. And I've heard from the community, both, you know, a lot of people wanted an indoor recreation concert venue, and other people don't want to spend the money, and they, you know, had the chance to have an absolutely beautiful one in the past, but it was too expensive, so it got voted down. So I think, you know, I think we need to be clear what we're doing here. And I do have a couple things, though. Eric, I'm not really sure about your chart. It just confused me so much.
I was trying to explain it, but I know it's gonna be confusing.
I don't think I ever heard in all of the meetings that I've been to that pickleball was the most sought after use of the building.
So this was a chart that was pulled directly from one of the CETA packets for public input. I just literally
Right,
copy and pasted that chart.
I don't agree that from all the public testimony we heard from so many people when we were going through this process before the pickleball was the highest use. The people wanted,
I remember that.
yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I remember it too, but
I don't.
as I think you have pointed out and many others have pointed out, it was a very flawed process.
Yeah.
It was a very small sample size, and in this town, you get a petition and, you know, you get, you know, a bunch of people to sign it, and all of a sudden that seems like the number one thing within the
Yeah,
community.
but I was really taking issue with that, and then also, there, on your chart, you say the multi-use large event space are elsewhere. Am I reading that right?
Or so which one?
They said concert hall, multi-use classroom space, the commercial kitchen space, if you're thinking of total that arts colony, that is their commercial kitchen.
No, there's a couple others,
Private ones or?
the one that you can rent.
Okay, well, okay, now spend, I mean, for my.
Oh, they cost like commercial, but it costs to rent.
Right, and the concert hall is, what is that? Where is that located, the other, where the? Yeah, the, oh, the theater?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
the bell, the place there. Yeah. And then the multi-use classroom space, which is.
we've got here, we've got Colvana Hall, and then we've got, a number of private locations that.
Yeah, but they also have very limited availability. I'm just saying, that I don't think we necessarily have those things. And I will say with the dog park, I'm a big dog person and a big dog walker, and I never take my dog to a dog park for the very reason you said that people don't want to take their dog on the beach. Because I don't want to be in an enclosed space with a bunch of off-leash dogs in a little space. However, on the beach, big cities have dog parks because we don't have beaches. You know, that's why. You don't, I mean, having a dog park in Cannon Beach, I think would be a huge waste of space in the park. It just, you know, really, it doesn't make sense, and I don't think very many dog owners would disagree with that, that they're not in favor of taking their dogs to those spaces with off-leash dogs. But that's a, you know, a minor thing. So I don't know, I think that we have to be really clear, you know, when you're talking about scope versus budget. If we, you know, if we're going, if we want to keep the budget at a certain level, then we can't have it enclosed. It just isn't gonna work, it doesn't seem to me. With if you're going to keep the costs low. But if you know, if budget's going to be a driving force, and it seems to have been in the last election that turned down the project we have, then I think we have to give up the idea of a close recreation space. I mean, but I think that you gotta be honest about what we're doing.
I think we also need to keep in mind the tourism dollars. You know, I don't think that we should be designing a community recreation space, wink, wink, let's use the tourism dollars. It's just,
I think we're building, there was, Hannah mentioned it, I think she said it today, the news yesterday, and to the packet, and then there was another comment online about it, but for an indoor community space that's intended for gathering, the school, for a number of reasons, but one of them, for the tsunami risk, was abandoned from use for the danger of that is this site the best site for that particular design? Should we be looking at something like the Southland area? Or something that specifically is away from where there's heavy tourism and it's outside of the tsunami zone, as opposed to
and find money that's
community money.
either we're going to raise property taxes or raise funds somehow to pay for a community thing.
Yeah, and I think that whole tsunami issue is a huge part of it too. I mean, you can retrofit, but you know, that's one of the reasons that the last project was expensive, because it was seismic.
I would like to not get too much into the weeds on specifics on these because, you know, we can kind of pick at this and that, but,
General concepts of factors to be included, I think is the best type of.
I think we, you know, both of our programs involve parking lots that somehow serve the food pantry. They include some kind of covered space, whether it can be a classroom adequate or, you know, community hall that, you know, some people are saying, you know, is beyond my pay grade. You know, we've got the interpretive trail. It just seems like we have a lot of alignment, and I don't think I think that we get this in the hands of a designer and see what the
I
possibilities are.
agree, and I'm not, and I don't, I mean, whether you two are aligned on your, this isn't the issue there, the issue I'm trying to raise is we either, looking at the scope of this project, are we gonna look for an indoor community recreation slash concert hall center, like some people have said they really want to have happen? Or are we going to look at park, which is essentially what both of you designed? And they're, you know, and they're two very different things. So that, I think, is the first decision that has to be made. Which one of those directions are we gonna go?
Well, the car park can be funded with the TOT dollars.
I think, if I can, I think the biggest hurdle that we face right now is deciding whether we wanna keep the gym in the classrooms or not. I think that, making that decision will help, I mean, we still need to hear from Todd. But I think making that decision as a group is going to help us make other decisions, but that's the main decision that we need to make.
That goes back to scope. Do we want an indoor facility or not?
Okay,
Or park?
so is there anybody on the Parks Committee that has anything to say?
Well, at this point, I would like to make a few comments, but I think we're getting to where we need to be now. I didn't need to see detailed park plans. I think both guys did a great job and they're beautiful, but we're going down the same path we did before. We're designing a facility and we hadn't even agreed on what we're gonna do there. I don't think that we're putting our effort where it needs to be. And I'm not even completely sure how to be sure what we do complies with the settlement agreement, because that's so wishy-washy to me, it doesn't make any sense, but that's we gotta live within that, and if it says we can't spend as much money, then I think Lisa's right on track. If we have to keep a low dollar thing, that's all we're gonna be allowed to do, then we're not gonna have an indoor space. I mean, it just isn't gonna happen. My other thought is that the only reason I was interested in those buildings is because the people who have lived here in this town forever said it meant something to them. It's a terrible location, it's a tsunami risk. It costs a lot to retrofit, we've already talked about it. I have nothing personally, I'm only speaking for me, I have no interest in preserving those buildings. If the people in this town don't want them. Put them someplace else. I don't know where that is, but what's the point? But I do think we don't need to look at detailed plans for parks and trails and all that other stuff if we can't even agree on what kind of things we're gonna do in that space.
You don't hear some agreement here, it's a nice restored park with an interpretive trail and some covered spaces. Parking lot that can accommodate events.
I think his point is more to the public comment is still mixed as to what's
There is no agreement.
the intended use of the site. That there's some comments saying they want it indoor, there's some comments saying that everything outdoor, so that's.
And I guess Ruben and I have both decided that we can't get there. We can't get there with the funding. We can't get there with public sentiment. So I think I think that's what we're saying.
That's where I was at.
Me too.
Where I came up with that design too.
I mean, I wish actually people were a little more a little more pushing for what we had previously, if that was the desire.
I don't think anyone's pushing for anything. I think we're saying is that we as a council and the parks have to make a decision whether we want an indoor space or a park. And that's gotta be the decision that's made, because those two things, if we want an indoor space, then we talk about whether we rip down the gym and the school and the building, classroom building, or we start anew, or what we do. But that is the first question, which one of those things do we want?
Wow.
So Betty had her hand up.
I'm agreeing with Lisa about the indoor space, because indoor space is gonna create a lot more money going in. And I feel that limiting the amount of money we spend on the indoor space is sad, because we have a lot of people in this community that want an indoor space. So if we can't, because of the vote, we can't build it there, can we build a community center somewhere where people can recreate and we can have an indoor classroom and not focus it on that site? Do we have the money to do it somewhere else? Is the only reason we don't have money is because we voted that down and now we're restricted? Let's decide if that's the issue, because then we can move forward.
I think honoring the tribe and the historic site is very high on this, and that's where a lot of this started.
And I think all of us are in agreement on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Parks. And
But-
city council.
I think the tribe, the historic site, and the opportunities that our events presents for environmental education. I would hope that we could get to at least a small classroom there, or at least something that's weather protected enough that would work multi-season. I can't argue with that. I think ideally that would be something that would be beneficial for this community.
But maybe what Betty said really makes a lot of sense, because if an indoor facility isn't, if that's not the site for one, and it might not, it very well might not be that. Well, I'm not giving my opinion of what should be there out of this, I'm just saying, if they decide that we would, people decide they want a community center, why that site for it? Why not that comes up with some other place for a separate community center sometime in the future?
I
And
think
forget
if we
about
want
that.
a community center, we do need to think about another site,
Yeah.
and we need to think about other funding.
That might be true, yes.
Well, we can't use TLT dollars for it.
Right. So we still haven't had the tribe presentation, and I think we probably should move to that because we can have more discussion.
So I have a question, is this a tribal presentation or is this a Todd
This
presentation?
is tribal presentation, but I wanted to step up and make a few comments on what was said before, real quick. So Todd Lawson, the architect, had great stuff. Really impressive. Gonna be out of business here pretty soon if you guys keep on going at it.
They're too busy.
So, but let me put on my budget hat, not my budget hat. Gym budget hat, just in gym, just looking at you guys' presentations today and worrying that we're not gonna be able to afford anything is. I see a lot of dollars on both you guys' presentations, and I think Gary, you're really up on the, how much do we have to spend and where it's coming from, and I'm glad to see that, because no one's ever really put that on the screen before, and it was so important. But, my work with the budget shows me there's some real issues about, when we were doing $12.5 million budget, there was $2.5 million in utility upgrades. Just utility upgrades. Now, just because we're not building the big thing, doesn't mean we can make a smaller sewer pipe or a smaller electrical bulb. So we need to look at how we, those 2.5, if that's reality, we can go back to the builder and everything, but I'm very, very, very concerned about that, because based on your budget, they're gone, just upgrading the utilities. As far as.
Are you here to advocate on behalf of the tribe for saving the gymnasium?
I'm commenting on the public forum, so in about 2 seconds, we're gonna go over.
Well, we've had public comment, but.
I'm sorry, I raised my hand up, I didn't.
Yeah, we're having public comment.
Okay.
Yeah, so hopefully we can all put on our budget hats and look at how we're gonna spend this money that we may or may not have. But your presentation was awesome, but that building is expensive. I mean, that's a $2 million building, I would guess, with bathrooms and all that, so that's I love it, but we should really all get together and figure out, you know, what the hurdles are for everybody. Gym, no gym, whatever, because there are some significant, hurdles. So then, we're going to try that for a few minutes public comment. First of all, I loved all the stuff. you guys were talking
Hold
about.
on just a second. Is there anybody else that wants to make public comment about Eric's presentation? Is that?
Well, yeah, but.
I just briefly, I can do it for my peers, so.
No, why not? Because people watching, they don't see.
In Margaret Law, PO Box 12, condition ordinance registration signature. So, I have to be really careful because when I listen to this conversation, I start going down through my epidemiological path. And I think part of the responsibility of a community is to support the health and well-being of the community. And so both of your presentations, I really appreciated. And with yours, Councilor Ostrander, when you're talking about the community garden, it made me think of the Hoffman Center Garden in Manzanita. And during the spring till early fall, I'm probably down there 2 to 3 times a week. It's my meeting place. That's where I go to have meetings, my professional meetings, my community meetings. The way the community stewards that garden, the design of it. And so it made me think of that, and that image wasn't included. The dog park, a little amused. I mean, you can't compare the dollars and cents of it. But when I think about all the people that come to this community, and the reality is tourists would go to an indoor facility if it existed. They would go to it. And we have unpredictable weather. But the fact that we'd be thinking about all of this space, and yes, people love their dogs, and I love my golden retriever, that we would want to have a dog park, when you have all these people that are just longing to have a place to indoor recreate. And so I need to add that to my comments. And then the other thing, you're trying to figure out things fiscally, it just came to mind that since we have parts of the community that aren't part of the taxing district, and, you know, I might not be alive if an indoor recreation center gets built or community center. Maybe an option would be for the city to contract a discounted rate with both Sunset Empire Parks and Recreation District, as well as the North Coast Recreation District. So those of us who are residents can have a discount to use their pools, to use their incredible indoor facilities, to take advantage of all of their recreation classes. A lot of things, mostly, that we don't offer in this community. And so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, so next we will have the tribal presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. What?
That's what you're doing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Margot and Paul Duber.
Good evening. Is it Margot or Paul? Are you both in a heartbeat?
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Are we good? Well, there's no microphone here.
Are you there?
With one device?
David? There we go.
Okay, are we there?
Yeah,
Much better.
go ahead. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Go ahead,
Okay.
Margot.
Okay, now, well, we're double teaming you guys. Thank you. Paul Duber, PO Box 549. I'm thinking back to 2018, 2019, and Bruce can weigh in on this. We did a huge survey here in town, and I don't know how many 600 plus people responded to that survey, and one of the overwhelming responses was indoor center, recreational, whatever, and event center. So my encouragement to you, and I absolutely agree with Deanna on this, we have to determine what we're going to do with the building and what's being kept and what's not being kept. But if we're going to talk about something that's at that location or any location, that would be one of the issues and one of the desires of the community as in large count. An event center or an indoor recreation center. I can't imagine, and I know those of us who play soccer, well, I used to, tennis, pickleball, whatever, basketball, volleyball in the gymnasium. We could come down on a Tuesday night, Wednesday night in December and January, and we could play indoors, and we played for hours in that facility. And I think if you check the surveys that we have had in the past, I think you will see that there is an overwhelming desire for something that would be a combination event center, which might be the best term to use to describe the whole thing. If we're looking at qualifying for tax dollars or whatever that is, then also that would double as an indoor recreational center. And I think Deanna's spot on with suggesting, let's first decide what's being kept and what's not being kept, and what are the priorities that the community has developed with regard to this specific site. Putting it off to someplace south of us, up in the area where they're building the police department area, that's not going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years. That might be lucky to happen in the next 10 to 15 years. That's so far away that it's just kind of a non-issue at this particular point for me. I think I agree, and I think both Eric and Gary have done an excellent presentation. There's some great ideas there, but I think that one of the primary focuses I think that we should be paying attention to is what the desire is of the community, and an indoor center, whether it's called an event center or recreation center, is primary to that desire. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
I wanted to comment really quick about Margot's comment on the Sunset Recreation District. That was something that had been noted previously. I don't remember if it was a council vote or if it was a community vote, but we used to be part of the Sunset Recreation District.
Parts of the town.
And we are no longer, potentially, this could be an opportunity to open up that conversation again. So we're not paying out of just.
And a lot of people on Cannon Beach did not want to pay for that again with the.
But that's how we get in, that's how we get the district, is by being a part of the paying for it, and our impacts.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? Okay, next we have the tribe. Oh, sorry. Make use of you report. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna just take a minute break. Okay, welcome back to the special meeting, work session.
So, just to finish my thoughts, the spirit and the warmth and the commitment to help Travis Spring, I can't think of that. So, I put together a little presentation, but not really plans. The tribe's, just here to participate and to facilitate the cultural, and we've got a lot of experts. But I just thought I'd give a little background about who exactly we are, right? I think, and sorry, this might be a repeat for some people, but it's just a little thoughts on Halem 101. And so, you turn this next slide. Like I get a pointer, but so the class of Nehalem right now is a modern hybrid of two tribes, the Clatsop, which go kind of from Tillamook Head to Astoria, and then the Nehalem, which goes from here, this is sort of their big base, on down, and then they interweave with the Tillamans, right? And Nehalem literally means northern Tillamook. And so in modern times, as we've come, sort of become a corporation in the company, we joined forces together on the Clatsop descent. I think I have a little Nehalem in me, but we're all up and down the tribe. It's really an interesting mix. So we speak Clatsop and Chinookan languages, and the Chinook Wawa, actually, you can change the slide here. So just the things that tie us together are long histories of people and places and shared language. And when Lewis and Clark came, they realized, oh my goodness, there's a lot of people speaking the Nehalem Tillamook in Seaside, and there's also a lot of people speaking, Chinook and Wawa. So it's a very intertwined group. So those are the Nehalem group spoke Coast Salish and Tillamook, and then the Clatsop spoke Chinookan languages in our own language, Clatsop, which is dead, sadly, and the Wawa. Next slide. I'll try to make this quick. Put 2,000 years into 10 minutes. So the Nakus is a great word. It means places at the low tide or place at the receding tide. And it just really describes the place, right? When the tide goes out, it goes out forever, which is kind of other than Tillamook Head. So next slide. And then Ecola means place near elk. I mean, sums it up right there, right? They forecasted this in advance. So those are both kind of hybrid words that don't have a strong history, but they got written down in the Lewis Clark Journal and they're with us today. But that's probably in the Nehalem Tillamook dialect word. Next slide. So the great thing about this site, and it's kind of very similar to what's happening now, is it's a gathering place. Richard said it best, and he always does. It's like we're, 2,000 years it was a gathering place, and then right before contact, it was like one of the big hubs where people would travel up and down the coast on their way to the Columbia River, which is sort of like the I-5 for the natives, and then this would have been like Highway 30 or something. So it was a research hub, it was a pit stop, people would stay here when there were storms. Oral history is about staying here when there were storms. Folks couldn't get you around Tillamook Head by boat and they didn't want to hike over, so they just kind of moored up, and that's why the Welcome Pole's there, and it's always been this gathering place and a beautiful place, as we know from all of those. Next slide. So I think it's great because it's sort of a gateway. You can only imagine what it was like in 1700, right? It would have just been salmon and beavers and everything, and it really is kind of metaphorically a gateway for the car, but also by the beach, by the water. We talked about the trail, and I just loved everyone's inspired chat about integrating all because the native plants and super important to the tribe. Super important to the tribe. Complex, but super important. Next slide. And so, just kind of look at the brief history. We were there for about 2,000 years before Lewis and Clark got there. So they just, for the record, they didn't discover we were kind of figured out. But so if you look at the map, that's Clark's map, I believe. And you can see the Coos Village there down in red, and then Tillamook Heads looks like it sticks out, and then the Salt Works right are in Seaside, the famous Salt Works are in Seaside. So when next slide, the big whale on the beach story, I don't need to go over that, but it was put us on the map, basically. I'm so glad that happened because the Nehalem folks may not have got their day in the sun had the news of the whale spread up all the way to Astoria. So next slide. So what really is interesting now is the connections with real people really right now. So this woman, Maggie Adams, I'm not gonna attempt, sadly, I'm pretty bad with my Chinook and Tillamook, so I'm not gonna try to pronounce her her Indian name, but she was born around 1807 on the Coos. So this is probably one of the few photographs we have of someone dating that back. But what's really cool about this photo is there's people in our tribe who are directly related to this person and speak the language that some of their relatives, their descendants of her were the last Tillamook speaking people in the world. sadly, we did a good job of documenting them, but, sadly, that's a dead language now. So next slide. So, and then Nancy Jervis, 1860, it's not an exact date, but she was sort of the last person who got mail, so to speak, at the Coos. And a lot of you meant D. Right, related back, to D and the Jervis, and there's a whole bunch of folks there. And you know, what's really cool, so like the intertwining of the personalities and the storytelling is, what's great about, like, for example, my great grandfather, Silas Smith, those words that we were talking about before, the cola and the, you know, all those, he was the one that transferred those from oral history into written history. And that was only, you know, 1895. So not that long ago in the big picture, but it's, so there's this intertwining connections back and forth. Next slide. So we go fast forward to, I don't know, 1952 or something like that, where the Jervises leave under kind of unknown things, but we were sort of run out of town, right? We weren't allowed to own properties and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a dark, slow history. There's not one major event, but the plagues and everything just kind of wiped us out. And then our style of habitation also was kind of a mystery to a lot of the pioneers, because, you know, the Jervises would live there part of the year, and then they would go somewhere else for the rest of the year. So then people would come and say, oh, it's an empty lot, right? And so that happened a lot from here to Alaska. People didn't really understand those migration patterns and seasonal and stuff. So the school was built, which is now, so next slide. I think these are some great photographs from our beloved Cannon Beach Museum. And so next slide. So I chose this one because it's just, me said blank slate, right? It's, I mean, anything can happen, and all the great ideas that you guys both put out today and everyone's been talking about. It's just like a marble in the rough, right? We could totally do whatever, you know, as much as we can afford right this. So next slide. So, but within that, here's the sort of few things that we'd like to remember to try for is we'd like to, it is a sacred place, right? We want to mourn the past, not in overly dramatic terms, but we'd like to be recognized that, you know, this was taken from us. And how that happens, you know, we'll work with the elders and all that. So then we want to remember the past, right? And that's what's been so great about you guys' presentations, is it's very much about trying to capture that history. And we're in the greatest time in history right now, because there's a lot of people who are still alive that actually know people who knew, you know, their great-grandma, they met their great-grandma when they were 3 years old. So it's pretty amazing. So education, I know Gary's big on the classroom. We would love to see a classroom, but education, education, education. And then celebrate. The last thing is when, you know, nothing would be better than we all build something and make the space alive and great again. So in closing, the tribe is still on board. It's been a long haul, as we know. I know the first time I talked about this project was with Dick about 7 years ago or 8 years ago, when Mayor Mike was there looking at buying it, and, you know, someone wanted to buy it for a garage or a hotel or something. And so we've been at this for a long time, and Dick's been great. You know, we wouldn't be, none of us would be standing here probably if it wasn't for Dick Bash. And so whatever we can do to help the tribes here, we've got some of the experts who mentioned. Doug Doerr is you know, champion of the tribe, and then Roberta Bash is like a world expert on native plants, and Dick is too on folklore. So we're going to help, and we're here to participate. And by no means does, you know, any opinion about, oh, we'd like the pantry to stay. There's nothing set in stone, right? That's as the opinion letter, tribe opinion letter stated. We understand it's a difficult choice, right? It's kind of a cluster, for lack of a better term, and we're going to be with you, you know, for the long.
So you don't really have any I mean, whether it becomes a park or whether it becomes an indoor recreation, you're happy with.
Me personally.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
right now, he's doing that.
I have some specifics here, I could answer that question if you'd like.
So in that opinion letter, we tried to create a list of things that, that have been asked, right? Like people actually, God, what's the tribe think about this? And what's this tribe think about that? And in archaeology, what do you think about parking? So we try to address some of those, but as you know, if you read through it, basically every paragraph ends with, but we know it's a difficult budget, you know, the classic thing. So we would love a classroom, right? We would love educational garden. We'd love a place that maybe park our, you know, it goes on and on again, but at this stage, the directive that I was sort of given by Dick and some other people on the phone was we just wanted to let you know that, well, first of all, what you guys are doing is right in line with what the tribe has been talking about for forever. But if you want to get granular, right, the tribe can do that as well. Again, as we know, I'm pro gym. I know Dick pro gym, a lot of good questions, but again, that's just like, is that really in our contract?
That's not what I'm asking.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
That's from here, it would honor the tribe just as much if it was a beautiful park with interpretive signage and history of the tribe
Great.
incorporated into the design as it would, if, I know you personally like this, that want to keep it. If you're an architect, you want to keep it because you love that structure.
Yeah.
I understand that, I'm not talking about that.
So I get what you're saying, no, sorry. So what, again, it's a gray area, you know, we've sat around with the architect for 2 years and talked about it, where it would be a real bummer if we just showed up and there was some interpretive sign. Don't get me wrong, we would love some interpretive signage, but we would hope that we could all work together to make, you know, so my last slide was very kind of ethereal, spiritual, you know, more, so, you know, so spaces that those sort of things can happen in. We're starting to happen with the Cedar design, right? It kind of went all over the place, but you know, the Eagle Garden, which I think showed from Gary's again. So we would definitely like to rise it to a higher level than just a mural interpretive signage, right? That would be kind of a bummer. But we can make spaces. I'm sure we're gonna hire a new park designer that can, you know, capture, like, I was talking to Don, you know, Don and I had multiple conversations about this, and, you know, he's a hero of mine. He's amazing. And about the pantry, you know, just the whole thing, right? He does not hold back. He has an opinion, pretty smart guy. So, but you know, we both sat there and said, yeah, this could really be a special space, but, you know, it has to be designed well. It has to, you know, and just preserving the nature and recreating the landscape will be really great, right? And I'm not against it, we're not against interpretive signage, but like, I think Roberta Bash said, well, we don't want to make it look like, you know, people put those spice, oh, this is my mint, and this is my, you know, it could be really kind of hokey, right? You know, so, and Roberta's world famous for her knowledge, so, my little speech was sort of a pep talk to say, you know, we're here, we understand the trials and tribulations that we're going through. It's no small task. I feel sorry for Bruce. I've hammered that guy for 4 years now with questions on a daily basis and bar, you know, you've seen, I'm a persistent guy, right? Surprise, surprise. So, but, we think it can be more than just, you know, like, again, I don't want to bash, but there's like the, you walk down the path when you're going down to the Haystack Rock, there's a little signage there, great, but we gotta bring our A game, and the A game really may not cost them anything more than just really, the previous design had some really neat ideas that never really got developed because we sort of, you know, ended it, but, sort of a quiet, contemplative, what am I saying, the word? Private mornings, you know, with just the circle of stones and, you know, landscape oriented is such a powerful gesture, right? And sometimes the eagle, the thunderbird can be kind of lost, but it's those little spaces that don't cost us a lot, and, you know, we'll be there to cheer that sort of thing on, but we don't want to give the impression like it's our way or the highway or any of the above, and, that was a mouthful.
I got those words actually from Ginger, the chairperson of the Clatsop Nehalem Confederated Tribes. Our tribal council is in agreement with the idea that we do not want to ever be a voice in deciding affairs that are not any of our business. What is done with the gymnasium is strictly a Cannon Beach issue. We have no desire to be involved in the decision-making progress. I think they do want a lot of the things that Todd is.
Well, I think,
They do want to be recognized.
I think
yeah.
it was, you guys were pitched today and with some, and you guys have had like great presentations. I mean, literally, you know, so we'll just bring it up from there and try to get it built, but, I think Ginger's being just so ginger and sweet that we just didn't want to get it right. Well, I think
What we decided to do is our decision, but then, you know, including the tribe and that, whatever that is going to be critical.
I was just trying to determine if, I think that I just want to be part of what, you know, have some part of what the final decision is, whether it's a park or whether it's a recreation center, doesn't seem to me is the issue, but just, they want, you know, have some.
That's what I read.
Yeah, so I think what Gary said, and he was very, you know, articulate and we're in a place where, you know, it's your tax money, right? And we're kind of guests here, but we're kind of our own, you know, it's a weird position for us to be in. And we really appreciate the fact that that Bruce invited us in 4 years ago or whatever we started this conversation. So, great question. I don't think what we want costs a lot more money than what I've seen on the paper today. In fact, it could be less. Guys like Don Stastny and stuff, we can get as crits and ideas and, but it is a scary venture we're heading into. You know, there's such a cluster of unknowns, and being the spreadsheet nerd that I am, I'm really concerned about some of the pricing that I keep on harping, this $2.5 million and utility upgrades, and that's a third of our budget, right? And do we need that? Do we not? So hopefully before we get too far down the line, this is what Don actually talked about. He goes, you know, you guys gotta get something in there and really, this is gonna cost this much, this is gonna cost this much, this is gonna cost this much. And then you got, and that's what I loved about, Gary's slide presentation about, you know, here's the cash, right? So more or less, but, and then out of that though, you know, Don and I both sat there and had coffee for a couple of hours staring at the space, and we both thought that, the thing that's blocking inspiration of space isn't the budget, right? It's, we can do that for some really thoughtful things, and I can show you, we can show you examples, and we didn't want to do that today, right? That was what today was about, but, so we're convinced that we can get a space that'll, thank you very much, satisfy our sort of spiritual needs and cultural aspirations without breaking the bank. I really, that's what Don and I agreed on. You know, he's worked on, I don't know if you've ever seen his work, but it's amazing. But he's worked on these, you know, 600,000 square foot museums and museums and stuff. So, yeah. No, I think we're good. Yeah. So anything else? Thanks for listening. That was a bit of a mouthful.
So is there anyone in the audience who has
Questions or, again, I've been bouncing around wearing different hats today, and I apologize that caused any problems, but, we are just really thankful that you guys are, you know, we're a team moving forward.
I have a question, 2.5 for utility upgrades.
Yeah.
That you're referencing. How is that, so with the numbers that were presented by Greg, so 6 months ago versus what's in the packet today, At those million in site work, where's the 2.5 fall into?
So
Does it
that's-
fall into these numbers?
That's, well, good question. That is the question. So if you go all the way back to the 12.5, like, they really did a great job of breaking it out, right? And it was a little, wow. You know, the whole building could be, all bells and whistles. The hard cost of just the building was only only $4.2 million only. But, so the hard cost of actually building the building is 25% of the project. That's what kind of blew my mind. So then if you go down that same thing, $2.5 million was utility upgrades. But if you look at the plans, which I have in depth, you know, there's things like, a fire hydrant, a new fire hydrant. Do we have to have a fire hydrant? Is that, do we trigger that? Spending so much money, or every fire marshal has their own thing. There's new sewer, there's new electric. And unless we just do a park, right, with nothing, we're gonna need all those things, right? Like your example with the restrooms, which is very much needed, and I drew a little plan as well. I don't know if anyone saw, but it's basically the same stuff you get, right? Maybe it's almost backwards. Other than that, you have your structure and I have the gym, right? Other than that, they're exactly the same, basically. So, so we really need to, you know, just to figure, again, not pro gym, not just to really start to understand these numbers, because when you break them down and spin over, and Bruce will attest for this, been over a long time, and they were done for different questions, and so, you know, the Brennick one that was presented, it was $4 million hard cuts, right? Well, are the utilities in there, or are they in the site, you know, so my sense is the reason it's $4 million to do the building is that it's a hard cost, if you look at the way they did it before. So they put the utilities in that $4 million. So only about 1.8 to 1.9 million of that 4 million is the building, right? That's why I keep on saying apples to apples of these things. And so these are big round numbers, and don't take my word for it. Let's go out, because it really is, in essence, what we've been talking about for 3 years, right? Is spending money. And even the conversation with, I'm sure, Brendan, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. So they might have input. I might be wrong. I don't think I am completely wrong. I think I'm somewhere probably in the middle. But so we're not out, the truck's not out to break the bank. We think we can get done what we want to do. You know, the utilities, this mystery building, whatever it's gonna be, the parking lot. I don't think parking lots are not cheap, right? I mean, we could call it Red Plains, the guy that Red Plains did I'm friends with him. I could call him tomorrow, and we could send your proposal to him, and they could give you a ballpark on how many millions of dollars of parking and drainage, because right, you do parking, you have drainage, and you have swales, and then, you know, so like actually your plan was cool that it had one of those for swales. So anything else? Kind of getting off topic there, but
I just want to say one thing. You said repeatedly that the tribes are grateful for being allowed to participate. I think that the city should be grateful for you being willing.
Yeah.
well, yeah, first one, thank you.
I've been wondering all night who that guy was.
So yeah, Hughes, a fellow that's out like myself, and is gonna be a man about town. He's super active, and he used to work for National Fish Wildlife, and so knows a lot about a lot of things. So that's where our team, right, the Doug Doers and the Hughes and the Richard Batches, and you know, we bring a lot to the table, and it's gonna be a win-win for everyone. So.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that concludes our presentations and our public comment. So thank you, everyone. And now we're going to discuss what our next steps should be. Does anybody from the Parks Committee have anything to say?
Well, you know, if you know me, you've been on a committee with me, you know that I like to look at ordinances and master plans and see.
Should we have it come up?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
Sure.
Spoken on the back, Joe.
Well, if you know me, you know that, sort of committee, that I like to look at city ordinance or the master plan, which I've looked at. A couple of things, I guess that come to mind here is looking at our parks master plan and policy strategies and actions, where chief among them was the concern that new or upgraded facilities would make Cannon Beach start to look like any other city. There is clearly a preference for facilities that are modestly scaled, both for fiscal reasons and for the preservation of the small town feel. The best amenity is the beauty that nature already provides. In our city ordinance, this is the revised or reorganized, and under parks, new park projects or major improvements shall be reviewed by the City Parks Board and the Design Review Board to ensure that such projects are aesthetically compatible with their surroundings in terms of open space, landscaping, scale, and architecture. Public need will be demonstrated through evidence of increased demand on existing facilities and the support of citizens and visitors for the proposed facility. I may be in a unique position because I was also on the design review board, which denied the project originally that came before us from the city. One of the major discussions was the site and the tsunami danger. And I think we all know that the school was closed for that reason. And so the idea to put an enclosed structure on that site, I could not understand. You know, a couple other points, you know, besides it being in a high risk severe tsunami zone, are the risk premiums for the flood insurance rates. You know, all those things that need to be looked at. And, you know, I agree with Councillor Hammond, where I think the first thing is to look at what we're gonna probably have to do with the buildings. And it's hard to think that demolishing them, but something needs to move forward. And the stalling that's going on because everybody wants to be heard and have their idea be included, and a lot of great ideas, and a community center, recreation center being one of them, is preventing anything while the buildings continue to secure food bank. I mean, such a beautiful spot. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. As you probably can tell, I am supportive of it becoming an open space park.
With the food pantry on the side.
Well, I don't know that that's in the park's purview, so I think I will, get my comments on that myself at this point.
Okay.
But thank you for your time.
Excellent. Any other parks committee input?
Well, I appreciate the work you've worked with them and the work we did before too. Years of work just to kind of envision the park. And I'm hearing so much about a community center, and I don't think we can throw that out of it. But I do think after tonight, I'm thinking, why don't we reimagine the space in town where that could be true? And the site where the classic were, could be honoring them. And I hear them say classroom. We could have a classroom, or we could have environmental education, we could have tribal education. But I don't feel like we want to. Like, I feel like before we threw the baby out with the bathwater, now I think we can save the baby by creating a community center and having a classroom, and they don't have to be in the same spot. And we can envision the park with these beautiful plants that you folks have created. But we just have to get there, and I don't think the classroom itself would cost as much. And even then, if it did, we could do like Gary said, we have a enclosed space, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be for indoor activities. It could be for summertime picnicking, and then the back part of it or some part of it could have a classroom. So I'm thinking, why not have it all? Just re-envision where part of it would be. Because, I mean, I don't want to take the community center away. I think it's a great idea. Everybody wants that. Parents want it, family members, sports people want it, so that shouldn't be fair. Education is a really big part of that park because the historical site, it's so important that we tell that story. And we honor the tribe that hasn't been honored ever. So that's important. So if we just look at what's really important and then try to figure out, we have a big town, we can replace a gym somewhere else. And then we wouldn't have to drive to Seaside or Halem. And if the Halem can have a gym, I think we. So let's look at it positively. We've already gone through this. We've got so much stuff we want to do at that park educationally. And people really want a community center. So let's just have it all. Figure out the budget for this. And I think we could figure out how to build what they did in the Halem. Whatever that costs, we can do that too. So that's my suggestion. And it makes me feel happier. Thank you. I don't want any more fighting. Tom?
This whole process has to feel for the same debacle that we just went through, where we got voted down. And maybe this is part of the learning process, because we have to offer, you know, the residents here some ideas. And I think we need to poll those people. You got voters' rolls, okay? Maybe you condense this thing down into 6 or 7 or 8 options and put it out there in a survey. You don't have to hire somebody from Portland to do that. You've already got the voters' rolls. It's available. Get the responses back. The city can go ahead and say, okay, it was so many for, you know, item 1 or 2, 3, 4. Get some feedback on this, you know. We've all got ideas, you know. I've got my opinion on what I think of no there. I don't want to share it with you because it's my idea. And you might not like it. But that's the only thing I'm saying. You know, this doesn't feel right. When it got, including the Parks Committee, yeah, we'd like to see a park there. Not necessarily a community center. You know, that's my thoughts.
Thank you. Anybody else?
They come prepared to say anything, so these are just observations from tonight. And so, newer to this subject actually, probably compared to anybody else in the room. You know, kind of what I was hearing tonight was a lot of really good ideas, great presentations. But that perhaps we're trying to include too many wants kind of into one site. And trying to make it fit everybody, if you will, even though we have a priority of what people are supposed to ask. I kind of like the idea of, you know, so let's look at that list again. And I'm kind of under the, you know, look at that, having been by there many times and briefly used the gymnasium. You know, I can see the attraction to the gymnasium. I'm kind of attracted to it too, even though I never had kids who went to school there. But I'd kind of like to see us consider that what we do there doesn't have any additional impact to the site compared to what's already happened there. I don't know if we could do some amelioration of what's there, but when I hear about additional construction, additional utilities, paving areas, making areas impermeable to rainwater again, that just seems like we're insulting the heritage of the site, from what it was traditionally from the First Nations, as well as what we want to be able to experience there spiritually or otherwise when we go there in the future. So I look at us to try to do something there that does not further really impacting the site, preserving some of the history that's there now if possible, and then trying to create a place that's inviting and warm and enjoyable. But then if we need to be able to have locations for like these community event sites, I agree and strongly support that too. If we don't try to keep that on something else that we're trying to do where it's kind of a different field we're going for there, if that's what you want to pursue. So that's what I kind of picked up over the last 2.5 hours. So thank you.
Thank you. Les, have you said everything you want to say?
Sinclair, new officer for 94. I didn't know what to expect tonight. I really didn't.
We never do.
The Parks Committee was invited because to me, the decisions, we're not even close to knowing what we're gonna do. You know, it felt like we had the cart before the horse. I do share the concern that I and several of us on the Parks Committee and others, we put hundreds of hours of time in the last plan, and it took almost nothing to be written. I really don't have a lot of enthusiasm for going down this path again. I think I made the comment earlier, it feels like we're doing the same thing. We're looking at designs before we know what this group of people that live in this community are willing to do. And I can't speak for them. I can tell you what Les likes, I can tell you what I don't like, but I honestly don't understand a place where so much effort can go into a concept and then someone from outside that derives it. I just don't know what to say. I really don't have a lot of interest in pursuing this right now. I'm still pretty unhappy with the way things went. I like what we had, quite frankly. I understand that's water under the bridge, but I do think that what we can agree on is we need to honor the tribe. I don't hear any agreement on any other use of that space. So I would say a park would be good. I would say the kinds of things that Todd has described to us to make it special from a tribal perspective is important. But I don't know what else this community wants. I don't know how you're gonna get that answer. You know, that's all I can think of.
Thank you. Okay, council, our turn.
Feel your pain. And I felt that for months because I thought we had a plan that, was an indoor recreation center and it was honoring the tribe and providing environmental education, and everyone's coming at this from all these different angles. And it just didn't seem to add up, and that's why I had to step back, look at what we're really trying to accomplish, honoring the tribe, really educating people about the environment, creating a place for community. And I just tried to bring it back to the most common denominator things that nobody could argue with. Obviously, people that want the gym are gonna argue with, we gotta save the gym. But, I'm feeling like, we're pretty close to, those common denominator things that, we wanna restore the park. We want an interpretive trail. That needs restrooms. Needs parking, and I'll just say that, parking would be the least disturbance for that, site as far as the archaeology of it. And Doug Dewar told me many times that the parking area actually preserved the archaeology of that.
Well, it doesn't have to be impervious either. It doesn't have to be, you know, asphalt.
Well, I don't know if there's, I'm not an expert in that, but it needs to be a hard surface if we want to have farms there, but. The park restoration, the interpretive trail, restrooms, parking area, covered. Gathering spaces. That whether that's picnic areas, whether it's group shelter, that could double as education, I hope that it does and works.
Are you comfortable making a decision as a council with parks that we would forego a community center, you know, the indoor community center at that site?
I think it's about money. It feels to me like we can.
That's what you feel comfortable.
Yeah, because
Okay.
because it's like, do we want a multi-million-dollar eyesore, or do we want a world-class park? And it feels like that's what we're
And
choosing.
that obviously means then the school comes down.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, yeah, because if we don't, we're not trying to create an indoor recreation center, then the school comes down. Yeah.
So, and the tsunami, you know, the big groups,
Yeah, no, I mean, there's, the tsunami thing is the most concerning.
I know this is
That you-
very
I just
difficult
wanted to
for
be-
our, a very difficult conversation, but I think. And we'll let her speak for herself, but I think she sees the reality of the situation too, that it's just like, it's money.
Well, an indoor recreation center space is very important for this community, I think. I drive down to Hamilton too for recreation. But I don't think that that is the place for it, only because it's an incredible tsunami hazard. And that bothers me, thinking of 150 people jammed into that building when the routes out of town to the evacuation site. Half the people, 3/4 of the people would make.
It's,
So
it's not the place for it, it's not the budget for it,
So.
it's not the funding for it.
But I do think, I don't wanna see the idea of an indoor recreation space shelved completely. At a different site, and at the very least, be starting with the idea of the lesser rates. For the Hallam and Sunset Recreation. That
You
makes
know,
total sense.
A community center would be fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't know where it goes or where we find the money for it, but,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have something to say, and I'm afraid it just, does it look like I'm pondering over that? And I may spontaneously combust, so, please don't come at me all at once. But we've talked a lot about, where we're going with this project. I think as a council, we can make a decision. But I also think that to respect the community, that if council makes a decision, I'm very much for doing a park, whether, you know, it's probably gonna be a mishmash of things. And this is where it becomes unpopular.
Thanks for the warning.
Yes, we've talked about polls, we've talked about surveys, I know both, you know, Tom, you talked about a poll, Lisa and Eric, you were both really on for a survey when, after this election, and other people have brought that up, Betty, thank you. for just seeing that I like the community center somewhere else. I'm sorry, I'm just going on. I'm gonna keep you all in suspense. But I think if we make a decision, the best poll that we can get is to send it to a vote of the people and see if they agree. And I know it seems defeating. I know it seems defeating, but, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's only fair that is an option that's put out there.
What are you voting on?
We make a decision and on if we're going to take down the buildings and put a park there. We make that decision and then we put it, there's a way to put it to the people.
Sounds like more of the
Do you
same.
want,
Everybody's got
in
a
other
different
words, it
idea.
would be, do you want to take down the buildings and have a park? Is that what you'd be voting on, if that's what we decided?
Basically, right? And I really, but I honestly believe that if everyone is, not everyone, but I think if it's sold to the community correctly, that it will pass. It's all with TLT dollars. There's no general funds involved. And I think that it would pass. And then you're always going to have people that don't agree, that want something different. But I think we're coming closer and closer, and Gary just said that, I think we're coming closer and closer as a community to getting it. And that way, everybody has their right to buy in on our decision. I could be completely off my rocker, but
I think so.
that seems, thank you, Gary. And then,
To go through that again,
It's not that,
well,
Question, Deanna, where do you stop though? Which decisions of the city council do you send out to a vote and which do you not? Do you send out approval of water rates to a vote? Do you send out approval of spending the money for the resiliency project to a vote? Do you spend where do you
stop it? You stop it when the community, a group in this community filed a lawsuit against the city to stop something. And we're working on that project again. And so I think the best way to circumvent another citizens group coming together, it's only my opinion. Like I said, I'm surprised that I haven't, and I'm just not sitting here anymore. But I think it's something to consider.
Well, that's why I took away every argument against the project from the plan essentially with, Eric and I have very similar plans. I think we took away every argument against it.
Well, I think.
And
Sorry, Gary.
if the budget, is the 6.6 that I put out there. Essentially, the lawsuit was to prevent us borrowing the money. It was a barrier to us borrowing the money. It almost stopped the city hall and police station. And if we're just using existing money and it's tourism restricted money, what are we gonna be sued for? I don't like it.
I don't have the answer to that. I have the answer to giving all of us. We made a decision together and then letting the community members that, Les is still having, I'm not sure that he watched that. But, there's some community members that have some PTSD and rightfully
And
so.
you wanna go back into battle, it sounds like.
No, it's not about, no, it's not about battle at all. I think this is how we could come more even together as a community to saying, we appreciate your input. I'm seeing a lot of heads shaking and that's okay.
Oh, okay, I'm ready to talk.
Okay.
We were elected to make decisions. We've had elections, we've had a lawsuit, we've had an election that tore this town apart. And I I am not willing to go down that road again. We need to make a decision. We also need to find another site for a community center. That's something we're hearing from our community. And we need to have a beautiful park. And that is extremely hard for me to say.
Yeah, because you love that thing. And I know it's really hard for you, and I really appreciate you.
But we need to have a park with a food pantry.
No,
I agree.
Yeah.
that That's what we were elected to do, is to make decisions. And again, I've been listening to people for 4 years, them screaming at me. And people on way over here and people way over there, and I just think that it's a plan that's hard to argue with, except for people who say, I won't save the gymnasium.
And I'm not saying that I don't agree, and I'm not saying that I don't think we make a decision, but I think that it would be unfair if that option wasn't at least addressed. And if we're not okay with that, we're not okay with that. Does that make sense?
So you would like us right now to have a consensus on not having another election?
I know I didn't say that. I'm not asking for a consensus at all. I think you misunderstood what I just thought that it was something that should be talked about. And you
So
know,
I'm saying I do not want another election.
yeah, and you don't, and that's
Yeah, I
okay.
can't see going through that.
And I'm saying, I don't think another election, I don't think it's a good idea, because I think it never stops. You have, you're elected to make decisions, and at what point did you stop having elections over decisions? And I don't care if a small group of people file a lawsuit, that's not a reason to have. an
A small
election.
group of people turned into 60% of the community that said that they didn't wanna spend that much money.
And so we're not.
So we're
saying that.
So-
Make a
So
decision.
that's, but, I mean, and then a lot of people might say they don't want water rates changed, they don't want this or they don't want that. But at some point, as an elected representative, you have to make a decision. And I think that we're trying our best to listen to everybody's concerns. Like, all of us are really concerned about having a recreation center, I think. At least I know I am.
Yeah, I agree with
And
that.
I don't think that that's the place for it because of many, many reasons, but one being is the tsunami danger. But I think that we need to have them. And I don't want to see it fall by the wayside. I want us to start looking into ideas for that too. But in the meantime, that building is deteriorating. It's becoming more and more run down. And I think at some point, we've got to decide, okay, if we're gonna have a park, that means the building comes down. And we've got to do it.
Well, and we need to decide that sooner or later, because we've got funds that have been loaned that have to be spent, or we're gonna have to start paying the government money on that money.
That,
No.
yeah.
And it's a short.
So-
list.
How do you feel about an election?
I'm not in favor of specifically looking again and asking here, I'm still in favor of survey. Because.
Would you put- What
But,
would you put on the survey?
Yeah, because my concern about a survey, if I can jump in,
Yeah.
is that, you know, and we hear it tonight, people want things that these funds aren't eligible for. And we kind of have to bring our knowledge and understanding of that to a decision.
And we had a survey, this was a survey we had, and look how effective that was. Look what that did for us.
No, when it's a poorly designed survey.
Well, okay, but I'm just saying, you know,
So,
I'd rather spend money on a survey, making a beautiful space in the park.
so are we all in agreement then that we're going to, that we want to take the buildings down and put a park in there?
With no election.
Yes, I only brought that up as
Okay.
an alternative.
Okay.
I told you, well, I did say, I said I was gonna spontaneously combust.
Yes, I think the buildings need to go, and we need to put this in the hands of a
Professional or
park
something.
designer. And
And
see what we can do
with the
for a
caveat,
reasonable budget that we don't have to borrow.
with the caveat that we're not throwing out the idea of a recreation center Cannon.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, that to me is, I don't like that, right? That's anyway.
Okay. So determine our next steps.
And we only have about 18 months before we have to
Great.
start giving up some of that money. to
Great.
government. Yeah, I think it was quick.
Okay. We're pretty clear on that. So ready for the order? Anybody got anything?
Yes. Question, I guess it's for Bruce and Karen, or in good order, and that would be, I noticed that, there's signage at where the overflow happened, warning people, but a lot of people are coming on the beach from the north and the south. And so they have no way of seeing that signage. Is there a way to put a sign on the beach warning people not to let their dogs drink from that creek or, you know, the Outfall Creek, I call it the river, because it's really big sometimes. But a way to have some kind of signage so that people coming from either the north or the south who aren't going to the Gallup Street entrance have some idea of, you know.
The signs were pretty fun, they were as far out as the tide allowed when they were up there yesterday.
Oh, they weren't today though.
Or maybe kind of.
Yeah, I appreciate
Sure.
it.
The material that was
Yeah.
taken out,
Sure.
the material that was contaminated has been taken out.
Well, okay. Yeah, if you want.
Karen, can you come up, please? Thanks.
This tide was up last night, so high tide left us with no beach whatsoever. So trying to anchor signage out there was kind of a futile effort. So we moved it back to where we knew the tide wouldn't be. And this morning, they pushed the signage back out. To go beyond where the creek flows all the way up to the tide line, and try to anchor signage without having someone there to monitor, it just runs the risk of that signage is gonna go out to the beach.
Because like some people sent me pictures today of, you know, dogs drinking from that creek, because, you know, their owners weren't aware of it. So I don't know how, I guess we don't have the personnel to have somebody stand out there and warn people.
And I'll be shy to having someone be out there. Well, there's really no other way. There isn't an effective way to put signage that far out on the beach with a tide and the time. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and what state is it in now, that river?
I'll give you the, I came prepared tonight to give you guys an update.
Oh, good.
So I'm just gonna kind of follow my, update so it's accurate. In an ongoing effort to pinpoint and isolate sources of sporadic bacteria detection at Talabot and Gower Falls, the city engaged a third-party contractor to install flow monitoring devices in various manhole locations around these specific areas. These devices are another way of collecting data that can help the city isolate potential I&I issues beyond the traditional smoke testing and TV videoing that we do in our sewer pipes. As noted in the initial public notification issued by the city following the incident, city crews found that in a manhole located just upstream from the Pacific Pump Station, one of the monitoring devices had come loose and was dangling in the sewer pipe. The dangling flow monitor collected toilet paper, paper towels, flushable wipes, and plastic grocery bags into a large ball that eventually blocked the sewer pipe, exiting the manhole, resulting in an overflow to the Gower Outfall. This incident occurred during a high rainfall event associated with a seasonal storm. Crews removed the blockage, cautionary signage was deployed, immediate cleanup of the area was performed, and samples were taken from the outfall to evaluate any potential risk to the public. DEQ and OHA, along with media, were informed of the incident. The city used social media and email list associated with city bulletin subscribers, the chamber and emergency management to further spread the message for precautions to the public. As of this afternoon, the city sample results
show there is no further risk to the public. Signage has been removed from the area and OHA was notified. The city has asked the contractor to visually inspect all other manhole locations with flow monitoring devices to ensure there is no risk of another occurrence at any other location. So that's the current status. We have till Friday to put together our detailed report that goes to DEQ. We're about halfway through that now. There's a lot of measurements and calculations that we get from the gauges to show the actual proof of what we feel the situation was. And so we're including other locations to confirm to DEQ that there's no other path to any other area. Okay.
Thank you for, all of that. Okay, anybody else have anything for the order?
Oh, no.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Okay.
this again, I brought it up last time, I bring it up again. I'm just really concerned about how somebody who's, okay, let's say somebody were to build a big wall, their property. But you had no idea, none of their neighbors knew that it was going to happen, that there's gonna be made out of concrete, they have no idea until after it's done. Okay, what kind of recourse is there for a citizen? I guess I'm asking Bruce, what kind of recourse is there for a citizen? If, in other words, you can't expect every citizen to read through every single building application that comes in. It's just not possible. So what recourse is there for somebody if something happens that you see as not being compliant with the code? And it's too late, it's already done. Then what happens? You can't appeal, the appeal period is over. So what do you do?
In case of the wall, it's in violation. You didn't have to be within the 14 days. And it's OPRD's responsibility, and my understanding is they are following through with that. When they became aware that the wall was there.
Okay, let's say there was no jurisdiction from parks. Let's say it was just the jurisdiction of the city. Okay, in other words, what if you saw something that was out of compliance with the code, but you're not aware of it, and you're a neighbor? Or I guess if you're a neighbor, you would have gotten some kind of notice. But even if the city wasn't even aware that they were going to do something, that they were going to put something up that was out of compliance with the code, because they determined that they could, so their architect said it was okay, or whatever, what is the recourse for a citizen? In other words, what is to stop someone from doing whatever they want to do? Whether it's in compliance with code or not.
There's two possibilities. One is that it's picked up in a routine inspection. And we've actually had people take down parts of the house. As a result of they had built it further out into the waterfront setback than what was allowed. And so that was caught by inspection. And then there's also a process which is unique to Cannon Beach, as far as I know, where you can get a building permit and someone can file a protest or an appeal.
But they can't do it if they don't know it's going to happen.
Right, I'm saying that it's kind of an anomaly that somebody can appeal a building permit. That's not a normal thing that happens in other communities. We allow that to happen, and there is I think it's a 14-day, maybe it's 21 days, 14 to 21 days that you can do that. But what that does, it starts the process that somebody can, we would start doing the inspections to see what the nature of the potential violation was, and if it had actually occurred, And in the case that you are aware of, it did occur, and it was fixed, and
No, that's not my question. My question is not, it's if you don't even know it's gonna happen until it's built. I know that one case on the Lee property that was rectified. But
it was built.
Yeah, it was built and it was rectified. That doesn't always happen though.
Right.
Because, and I'm just thinking, at what recourse would I have as a citizen? Other than hiring an attorney and filing a lawsuit, which seems bad for everyone.
It's a code violation, and then we would inspect it as a code violation, and if the code was violated as a result of somebody putting together a project, then we would require them to correct it.
Okay.
Now, there's a different situation that if, Ms. Hammond puts together something and has a wall that may or may not supposed to be there, and then you file an appeal, well, even that's gonna be, it'll get inspected. And if it's in the wrong place or was not part of the plans, then she would have to take it out.
Okay.
And is the wall, was that the one that was something about, it was like supposed to be a fence?
It's on the building plans as a fence, but it's a concrete.
But it's a concrete wall.
Yeah, but that, I supposedly Oregon State Parks is gonna look at that and see if they consider it to be a violation. I'm not really sure where it is in the hopper right now, or if it's even being looked at, or if they have the money or the personnel to even deal with it, because their budget is gonna cut so badly. But I'm talking about just little things like, for example, I know that a letter came through about, a piece of property on the north end, and that is where new construction is going in of a duplex. And it's right up against the toe of the hill, it's right behind it, that's basically sand dune. And so there was a request by the neighbors for a retaining wall to be put in. And it said, oh no, we're not gonna go near the toe, we don't need to put in a retaining wall. Well, they are, right now, I went and looked at it, they're right up against the toe. So how does that work? I mean, what's the next step? The appeal period is over for the original building plan. So how do we see, what happens next?
It stays a code violation. I mean, it's a code violation.
It seems to be.
And they would be required to, do whatever it takes to fix it, either remove it or repair it somehow. But, we just need to know that that's happening.
Okay, so I should have, somebody should write you a letter, and people who are affected by it should write you a letter telling you they think there's a code violation?
I'm aware of the situation you're talking about, check that.
Is this going to get checked out?
Yeah, I'll check that.
There's a problem there, there's a big problem there.
There really is a problem there. I mean, I've gone by and looked at, I'm not an engineer, but
Yeah.
I've gone by, even I can tell visually that they have moved into the toe of the hill. I just feel this sort of frustration from people feeling like they're not getting a response from the city, and I'm just trying to voice the concerns that I'm hearing from other people, because I feel like that's my job.
Understood. Agreed.
Okay, anybody else have anything to say here? So I'd like to thank the Parks Committee for joining us, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.